Comics are what Extreme Studios are all about, with bestsellers like Youngblood leading the way. Rob Liefeld, as part of Image Comics, became a major force in comics last year. How did Liefeld work his way from X-Force to Extreme? Slowly but surely.
It's a studio that I began about 2.5 years ago because I was tired of working alone. I mean, comics for a lot of people is a lonely business. You just kind of wake up every day and it's either like your bedroom or your living room or a little studio that you have. I'd shared some studios in the past with like Jim Valentino. I shared a studio with him for about a year, like my second year in comics. And then when I broke off, right towards the end of X-Force, I was trying to do Youngblood and X-Force at the same time, and I'd never done that kind of a load, doing 2 monthly books. So I hired the first guy actually, well, Murat Michaels, who does Brigade, has been with me for years. He used to assist me. I draw my pages real small, tiny on the page, and have them blown up on the copy machine and then transferred, and then I do the finishes. So he was kind of that in-between step. He'd take my drawings and do the copying, blow it up on the copy machine, transfer it. So he was kind of an assistant to me, did some background. Then I hired Richard Horry. He's now doing some books for us. And it was kind of just us three. So I wanted to start my own studio and work with young talent. So just these people that I meet through conventions or through the mail. Jeff Matsuda's work came through the mail. Dan Frega actually stalked me for 2 years, and until I gave him a job. He ripped off my phone number from this convention, and suddenly I was getting calls at midnight from this guy who just wanted to talk about comic books. And I go, hey, who is this? He goes, this is Dan. I go, oh my gosh. Then he got my fax number. I mean, he had total access to me. I felt like I was being watched, And finally Murat goes, he's an okay kid. You should give him some work. In the beginning, it was me looking for a lot of young, fresh talent, and I still look for a lot of young, fresh talent because I think it's exciting to take a guy from level A to to Z and watch his growth. Now, obviously, you can walk down, if you're a comic fan, because like I am, I walk down the halls and I go, oh, there's Dan Panoshi. He's right down the hall. Wow, I love his inking. There's Mark Pacell, and there's Art Taveran. There's Kiko Takanashi doing the killer colors. I mean, it's kind of the fan in me is definitely entertained by the whole, idea of Extreme as well. But I think we've really rounded it out. We've got a lot of young talent. We've got a lot of established talent, and we're just trying to entertain and do the best books we can.
Rob Liefeld has assembled one of the most talented teams of creators, inkers, and computer colorists in the comic book world. Creative, driving enthusiasm contributed to Rob's immediate but unexpected rapid success.
Yeah, I took some time off because things had just, I wasn't ready when Image started up. I think I actually thought that I could do X-Force and Youngblood monthly and then start a whole bunch of other books. And that crashed on me real fast, the reality of that situation. Things didn't work out the way they should. I remember I was just really excited to be able to work with friends. I mean, the first issue of Youngblood, a good friend of mine helped me write it. A good friend of mine colored it. Jim Valentino's wife, Diane, who I'd known and liked her a lot, lettered it. And it was just kind of like I was just piecing together, friends to work with. And I think I learned that, wow, I can actually not just only work with friends, but work with people I've always wanted to work with, the Steve Olafs, the Digital Chameleons, and the opportunities were there, and I think I learned a lot from some of the other guys in Image and their approach. We all pretty much stopped doing what we did for Marvel one day, and the next day we were drawing for Image, and there was no setup time. And I think that right now what I'm doing is I'm taking some time off to structure things, and I think the books are reflecting that. I think right now I'm kind of, I'm in coach mode. I do my own stuff. I wake up every morning, I work for a few hours, and I'm getting my stuff done. I'm putting shoes in the drawer. You haven't seen anything solicited with my name on it. I don't know when this is going to air, but for right now, it's been about 6 months. There hasn't been anything with my name as an artist. Because writing and stuff, that's different. That doesn't obviously tax your time the way the artwork does. But I probably won't have anything out till next summer.
With a new Youngblood book in the works for next summer, Extreme editor Eric Stevenson will have more characters and new titles.
Brigade there's a new character coming in the book called Roman, and he's like a undersea character. They're gonna do some stuff with him, and I don't want to tell the whole thing, but we're gonna reveal the origin of the characters Seahawk and Cold Snap in the book during the course of the story. We're going to be going into a crossover that we're going to have next year, and it's going to have all the books. Brigade, Bloodstrike, Supreme, Team Youngblood. All those books are going to cross over with one another, and they're all going to be joining together to fight a single villain who is going to be revealed in the pages of Team Youngblood, I think 6 or 7. And then he'll go over into Bloodstriking Brigade, and then he'll have a big confrontation with Supreme, where something really big happens in that issue that I'm not going to say. And the whole thing spins off into this new title I was just telling you about. The book's called The New Man, and that issue will not have anything to do with the crossover, but it will spring out of that, and that'll sort of be the impetus for why we have that book.
Since its formation, Rob Liefeld's Extreme has enjoyed growth in new characters while increasing the industry's standard of art, but always keeping his sights on the cutting edge. Liefeld has elevated the process of computer coloring of comic books into a unique art form.
I think we've really rounded it out. We've got a lot of young talent, we've got a lot of established talent, and we're just trying to entertain and do the best books we can. Jones is another new inker that we've got working here at Extreme. Very talented. This is a page from Jeff Matsuda's work on the Troll. This is looking sweet. Byron colors. I'd say half the books that we do here at Extreme, we use a bunch of color artists, but here is before Byron, after Byron. Very cool, very cool.
In his quest for the ideal company, Rob is always looking for new talent. Extreme is taking the lead position among fans and industry.
We're in here alone, but yeah, so more pages on computer, and I guess that will end our tour of Extreme because everyone went to lunch, so we're out of here.
Following on the heels of Batman and the X-Men, Extreme Studios has announced that Youngblood will begin a new life as an animated television show next fall. In charge of bringing Shaft, Chappelle, and the rest of the Youngblood crew to life is a new animation company called Roustabout Productions. Harrow spoke with Rob Liefeld about the new venture and the people behind the program.
The only animated show is set to air probably in the fall of, is this not 93, 94? We don't have a network to announce yet, but if you were here like a week later, I could tell you where it was going to be. But it's with a new company called Roustabout Productions. They're a group of animators collectively from Warner Brothers, from Universal, from Saban. These guys have worked on the Batman show, the X-Men show, the Animaniacs. They've worked on, gosh, I mean, everything. Between them, they have like 60, 70 years experience. These guys came into my office one day, and they just said, you know, we'd like to pitch some stuff for Youngblood. I figured they were just going to tell me about their backgrounds, about their talents. They whip out this storyboard of Youngblood already finished. They whip out this, like 8 finished cells, and I go, wow, I'm being worked here. I mean, because, you know, usually in the meetings, I try and, you know, kind of be stone-faced, and, you know, okay, I don't go for that, and not give away, you know, the emotional part of it. But I was like, oh my gosh, wow. And I was in talks with a couple other animated shows, and they were all suits. There were suits always talking to me. You know, they'd come in their 3-piece suits, and they didn't really, they were pitching their company, but these guys were artists. I was talking to artists, and they're kind of doing the same thing in animation that we were doing in comic books, which is they're taking the power into their own hands and taking their destinies in their own hands. They're tired of, you know, the light switch being turned off when the episode order is full. And the great thing about these guys is they're all comic book fans. They knew all about Youngblood. They knew about the characters, Image Comics, you know, everything that we're doing, all the books that we do here at Extreme. And that afternoon they left. I got on the phone with the people who I needed to talk to, the agents and everyone who kind of helps me put this stuff together, and gave it a thumbs up, and we've been going straight forward ever since. We went, again, 2 networks are bidding for right now, and so we'll see. We'll see what goes. But it should be a lot of fun, because these guys, again, they're all comic book fans, and they all, you know, we can sit around and talk about, you know, Jack Kirby, John Byrne, all the cool stuff that we liked as kids and what we want to do with the cartoon show. And the great thing about these guys is they're hungry. They don't want to go out and do something bad. You know, obviously on their first job, where no one's going to want to work with them, they've got to do, you know, the highest quality that they can do. So it's exciting. I mean, because Youngblood was created for that kind of, you know, animation, toys, you know, that realm, I guess.
Now, seen for the first time anywhere are the original character sketches for Youngblood. to Hero for regular updates on this scorching new program.
He used all the money he earned as a kid to buy comic books. Well, he's still a kid, but 26-year-old cartoonist Rob Liefeld now has comic books earning him lots of money. 2 years ago, he stunned the highly competitive comic book world by starting his own company, Image Comics, which has become one of the most successful in the industry, spearheaded by his creation of the super popular Youngblood series. And he is now developing a movie with none other than Steven Spielberg. Not bad for a guy who once had to hide his comic collection from his parents. Hi, nice to have you here. Is this true that your parents... First of all, how old were you when you first got into comic books?
I was probably around 5 years old, 5
years old?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't find them in your house because your parents wouldn't let them in your house. Where'd you find them?
No, there was a liquor store down the street, and that's where I would always buy the comic
Oh, wait a
books.
second. I happen to know your dad was a preacher. Okay, no. Rob, what were you doing in the liquor store?
Well, no, it was on the way home from school,
Yeah?
and I just would always wander in there and grab the
Those
comic
caught
books.
your eye.
Yeah, I was just, I don't know, I don't remember when I first got my first comic, but I responded to it, and
as fast as you bring them home, your parents said, get them out of here.
Well, yeah, they thought they were a bad influence. They didn't want me reading, like, you know, comic books, so.
And I hear that your sister once said, what do you think you're going to be? Grow up to be a comic book artist or something?
Yeah, she was pretty skeptical.
Yeah? Well, she'll want to tell them what she does now?
Yeah, now she works for me. She runs my business affairs.
This is called Sweet Revenge, folks.
Yeah,
she's
no,
your business
great.
manager.
She's great, yeah.
Isn't that great?
No, it worked out really good. People are very surprised. They always go, we can't believe you guys are working together. And it's been great for us, so.
And you bought your parents a house.
Yeah, well, it was just something that I wanted to do.
That's a neat thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Now, have they said, okay, we were wrong, so that...
No, actually,
No?
they've never kind of addressed that.
Come on, Mom and Dad, come on, give the guy a break. But let me ask you, here you are, you work, Marvel Comics is where you were working at one time.
Yeah, I started out at Marvel Comics.
And you pick up and you leave this very successful job there as a cartoonist, and everybody said, are you nuts? You can't start your own company.
Yeah.
What gave you the nerve to do that?
I just think that ultimately, like, I had outgrown what I had done there. I'd been there for a while, and everything that I created there, you know, that I didn't own and I didn't control. So it was like a natural, to me, progression that eventually I'd go away. It's like I view Marvel Comics as like Mom and Dad's house. That was Mom and Dad's house.
Your learning experience too.
And I grew up, and now I'm doing my own thing.
But now you got to do a lot more than draw. And
Yeah.
right, now you've got to know about marketing and distribution, and you got to get money to start the company. Was that hard or was that fun?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we didn't
Hard.
we didn't know what we were getting into at all. I was like, oh, I don't understand any of this, so.
We're looking at the company here. I mean, can you believe that this is your business and you got all these people working for you?
It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I wake up every day and I feel like I'm living a dream.
Now, I got to tell you folks at home, because he said to me that for over 20 years, he has awakened every day and he's watched this show.
That's true.
And
That's true.
he has done his comic. He's been inspired by our show,
No,
right?
absolutely. My parents watched this as a kid, and I mean, when I was a kid, and then it's just, comic book artists, we tend to work at home and work alone.
Well, I'm sure Charlie would agree with me that there's a kickback going here, don't you think?
So how long have you been drawing comic books?
Since I was about 7 years old, little kid.
What did your parents think about it?
They hated it. They hated it. Oh, yeah. After I got a job and they saw that you can make a living at it, you'll hear no complaints anymore.
And you created X-Force?
So what is the drawing of?
This is the Spike Man.
And what's this right here?
This is the camera on top of your head that will record the wrongdoings of others.
So Rob, have you had any formal art training?
No. Just a lot of imagination, I think. Wait so I say it and then look down, or just open it and say it.
Fly button?
These are not the affairs of mortal men.
Hosted by Stan Lee, Marvel Superheroes. Begins Monday, June 3rd at 9 p.m. 6 Pacific.
Some of you must have wondered, how does a comic book get made? How does it go from the original idea to the time you pick it up at the store?
I'm Phil here in Toronto, and I was wondering that myself. How does a comic go from this to this?
Making a comic book is a long, time-intensive process, but it all comes down to one original idea. Somebody's got to think it up in the first place.
So Rob, man, how do you come up with ideas?
I just think you go with what hits you when it hits you. I mean, I'll be sitting there in church or having lunch or whatever, and just an idea will hit me. Or I'll be on the freeway in the back of a car, and I'll go, cougar. You know, the name of the car, cougar. Oh, cougar. Well, let me see, cougar. I could do something with that name. And then you just build on that, and you run into your drawer, you know, into your desk, and you sketch it, and hopefully it works.
Plot or characters? Which comes first?
The story needs to draw you in to make you care about the character, so one without the other just doesn't exist.
Tell us about the last story idea you came up with. What happened?
Yesterday, I went to church, and we were sitting there, and he said something. He mentioned the word axe, which is a name of a book in the Bible, and I took axe and I said Advanced Counter-Terrorist Strike Force. And I said, that's good, that's cool, I can do something with that. And I went home and wrote some notes, and I was like, where did that come from? That was so out there.
So when you're fleshing out the plot, now are you sketching as you go along?
But I'll draw key shots. I may not lay it all out right then, but I'll draw key, shots in the story.
So Matt, what's your role in the comic process?
From the initial plot creation, you go through and you kind of monitor everything, make sure the continuity is correct. You go through the scripting process, you deal with the penciler and make sure the deadlines are met. You deal with the inkers, the colorists, the color separators, all the way to the film production. You deal with the printing house, organizing, page count, what page goes where, what ad goes where. You do the letters pages. You design the credits page, the inside front cover, the inside back cover, and deal with a little bit of everything.
Now, is this the right order? Plot, script, art?
There's two styles. There's what's called the full script style, and then there's the Marvel style, which I'm not sure, I believe it started at Marvel Comics. The full script, like Alan Moore, the Ward style script he gave us, has a description of all the panel work, what is in what panel, and it also has the word balloons of what they're going to say. A plot is more, just like a paragraph description of the page, and then the artist goes in, and on a Marvel style plot, the artist has much more creative input. He can go in and do a lot more and add a lot more, and then the writer will go back in and script it after that.
What do you think is the most important role in the comic process?
The most important step is the first one, the plot. I mean, if you start with a bad plot, you have nowhere to go.
All right, the starting of a comic book from conception. We're gonna start with an idea here at Extreme Studios with my man, Rob Liefeld. I'm a superhero, okay? And I'm like a cool superhero. Good guy.
You got superpowers?
Oh yeah, look.
Okay, besides being buff, what can you do?
Oh, super smart.
Okay, smart.
Lots of money.
Cash.
Lots of money. I can drive stick. Stickman! Fast. Like this. Like that. She's there. Glory, Evangeline, Gen 13 girls. It's all the girls. And then there's me, right? They're fighting over me. And I'm like, hey, girls,
Phil's angry.
Right. We have superhero business to do.
A lot of business.
Stop with this 90210 stuff.
No,
and let's do some good work here.
Ooh, Stickman.
Okay, guys, here's Phil's story. What do you think?
Yeah, cool. It's not as easy as coming up with an idea and going with it. First, you have to put the right idea down on paper. And if you don't have the right writer, your comic's not going to go anywhere. That's why I planned out Stickman's entire life right here. Well, it's just a first draft.
Hi there. I'm not especially world-famous comic book artist Ty Templeton, and I'm sitting here in my studio eagerly awaiting the new comic book idea from Phil that's coming my way any moment now. Well, this just in. Phil as a superhero called Stickman who drives a stick and everyone adores him. Okay, well, technically that is an idea. Phil's going to be driving a stick. We need to show him getting into a car so that we know he's good at it. There's Phil walking up to the car, and here's his millions of adoring fans. They're all standing around adoring. For the second panel will be Phil, very, very bold and brave because he's a superhero, big close-up of his face, getting into the car, looking tough, and then a big close-up, of course, of his superpower as he shifts gears, and then, the car screeching off into the sunset. Well, millions of adoring fans continue to adore because, well, that seems to be their job in this story. Well, there's a page of Stickman finished. It's not really the best idea I've ever had, but, well, you see what you can do with it. That's what I would have done. Let's move on to Batman, a comic book that people actually are likely to read. The first thing a penciler does when he gets a comic book to draw is he starts visualizing his ideas for the page. So for this particular page, I've been told that Batman and Robin have to be jumping down on some guys on a waterfront dock and causing them all ends of trouble. As you can see, we're more or less done the layout idea. From this point, we take it to a Xerox machine and we blow it up really huge, and that looks like this. This is it. The very same layout page I did just a moment ago, blown up, I think about 300%. I take it, I put it on the light table, put the paper over top of it, and quite literally trace it. Comic books are reduced down from the original art to the printed size. The qualities of a good penciler are to be able to tell the story well, so that while you're reading it, you're not questioning what's going on. At this point, we'd send this artwork off to that editor I mentioned earlier on, and he would give it to a letterer, and he would letter right over top of my artwork, spoiling my beautiful drawings with his silly letters. So let's hand it to the letterer now. Oh, I've been expecting this. Hi. My name's Guy Templeton, Guy to the French, and I'm a professional comic book letterer, and I suppose I've been asked to letter this page of Batman comics. Man, Ty didn't do a really good job on this one. He sort of threw it off quickly. Anyway, the way a comic book letterer works is he gets a piece of script and a piece of artwork at the same time, and the script basically says what to letter in the artwork, and that's what you do. So the first line of dialogue is, "Let's go." And it's as simple as this. You just carefully letter it in. The qualities of a good letterer really are just to make sure that he can write legibly, primarily. His job is to put the letters on the artwork and make it look as much like they've been put there by a machine as his hands can make it. There you go, a finished word balloon in a professional comic book. All right, well, that's my job done. Now time to hand it off to the inker so he can do his job. Thank you. Oh, hi there. I've been waiting for this. My name's Cy Templeton, and I'm a professional cartoonist, and I'm also a client. I'm going to be inking this page, and when you ink comic books, basically what you're doing is you're taking the penciled line and you're making it really, really black with whatever you have around to make it really black. Some people like to use crow quill pens, which is this. Some people use magic markers. Me personally, I like to use brushes and India ink because I think I have more control over my line when I do that. The inker sometimes can help direct the eye by making an area very black next to an area that's very white. Anyway, there you go, Mr. Colorist, sir. Thank you. Hi there, I'm Sly Templeton, the last of the Templeton boys, and I'm going to be coloring this comic book. I'm telling you right now, though, that the method I'm about to show you is an old-fashioned method that's on its way out. Comic books are still colored like this in some places, but for the most part, they're heading towards computers because computers are our friends. And you literally just take these watercolors and you color in the comic book page exactly as you'd like to see it in a printed version. Here it is, all written, penciled, inked, colored, lettered, and everything else. Ignore the fact that it says that different people did it on this particular credit box. I did it all.
We've finally worked out our web address. Check us out at www.antigrav.com.
The guys at Extreme loved it. They were going crazy over Stickman. I should have some kind of creative meeting or something. Which leads me to this next question. How many people does it take to make a comic?
5.
30.
If you have 2 or 3 people, you can make a really good comic book.
5.
30? What are you, stupid?
You're crazy. 5.
If you have 1 person, you can make an excellent comic book.
5.
Probably like 40.
5. Get out of here.
And if you have 5 or more, you can make a mediocre comic book.
5. 5.
Well, 1 to hold the pencil and 4 to move the table.
20?
2.
About 100.
5.
Yeah, the good guy and a bad guy.
Hi, I'm Jim Shooter, Editor-in-Chief and CEO of Broadway Comics, as you might expect, here in New York City. Well, a bunch of comic book creative people were hired by Broadway Video, which is a big media and entertainment company, to do a development on an unrelated project. And they liked our work so much that they said, hey, let's start a comic book company. production process here at Broadway Comics is a little bit different than most other places. We start with a group of writers, and that alone is unique. We actually write as a team. Each writer performs a slightly different function in the team. I'm kind of the head writer, I suppose. First of all, we start with what's called a full script. This is one of our scripts. You can see that it's quite a document. And what we do is we describe every panel and we provide the dialogue so that the artist knows exactly what he's supposed to draw, and he has a good description of it there, and he knows what the people are saying. In addition to this, we provide the artist a layout, a rough layout of what we think the panel should look like. Now you can see it's kind of rough, it's just a guide. And here actually, right here is a page drawn from the script and from this layout. You can see that the artist, Jeff Jones, has taken some liberties. He's pulled in a little closer here. Pretty much did this shot as it was indicated. Marvel, or most other companies, they do what's called the Marvel style, and they give an artist a very brief description of what the story's about, and then he just sort of makes it up. He draws the pictures for the story, having no idea what the dialogue is going to be. And that's great if you have Jack Kirby. He's very inventive, you know. On the other hand, sometimes the artist might miss the point, or he might not give the writer enough space to tell the story, or he might misconstrue something. So this way, we keep it much more focused on our story goals.
The next step in the birth of a comic is computer coloring, a process that involves, you guessed it, computers and color.
Hi, my name's Janet Jackson. I'm an editor here at Broadway Comics, and I'm in charge of supervising the coloring process. Back when I started at Marvel around 1983, all the separations were done basically by little old ladies sitting at light tables cutting out sheets of plastic. But now, since the advent of computers, we have this wealth of technique available to us. Basically, any technique that's available to a painter is available to us with the computer. Once the penciling and inking is done, the black and white drawing is passed on to the colorist. The colorist takes it, scans it into the computer, and with a little bit of direction from the editor, starts making the decisions of what to color. Once you have your basic tones down pretty flat, you'll start doing the shading. You know, putting in gradations, modeling the figure, putting in techniques. Once you had something like this all painted, you might put a blur on it to show the movement. Everybody works a little differently, but I tend to color section by section. Once I have the tank and the foreground finished, I might lay in a sky texture, then put a gradient of white on the horizon to give a little atmospheric haze. And I might use the airbrush to create some more clouds or enlarge the clouds that are already there. Basically, all the techniques I learned as an illustrator, I use in the computer, just a different technology.
If only we could have seen the magic of Phil Stickman brought to life by the colorist at Broadway Comics.
Is passed. Yes, sir. There you go.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Now don't you drop it. You know, the angle downward. Downward. Just smile.
Here's something a little bit new on the anti-gravity room. A little thing we call draw.
I was always into comic books, and I knew that I eventually wanted to become a cartoonist, and I actually met a few cartoonists while I was in high school, and they kind of, you know, when you hold a comic book page for the first time, you go, wow, this is what they make this stuff on. The process, when I was introduced to it, I knew, okay, I can do this. I can turn these into this. And then, you know, you set out and you buy the paper, I went down, I got the right paper, I cut it to size, and then you just go, wow, I'm like a professional. And so it just kind of shot off from there. And shortly after high school, I got a chance to meet with a few editors, and that's when I actually got my break. When I was a kid, my favorite artists, Frank Miller, John Byrne, George Perez, Art Adams, all those guys. I was trying to get my hands on any comics I could. And I just think you're influenced by everybody. Everybody brings something unique to the process, and I just try and take that and then kind of make it my own without, you know, imitating or being derivative. Me and my friends, you know, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, these guys, we're all selling these enormous amount of copies for Marvel. I mean, and at the time, literally, we weren't the, I mean, it would be different if everyone was selling that number of copies, but just a few guys were responsible for selling a lot of copies. I'd worked on this stuff for so long, and I just wanted to do my own characters, and if I wanted to change him red one day or give him blue hair, I didn't have to get anybody's approval. I could just do it. You know, people said, oh, you guys went off to be rich or whatever, and it's like, no, everyone told us we would fail. I'm young. If I fail, if Image failed, I'd be 25 years old and I can go get another job again. So it was like, it was no, the bottom line is, could I pay the rent? My expectations were really low. So the success that suddenly surrounded our company was something none of us expected. And you're just sitting there going, whoa. It took us by surprise and kind of knocked us off our keister, and it took us a while to get back up and go, whew, now we gotta, you know, maintain this, which is, I think, even more difficult.
From feminists who labeled their exaggerated proportions sexploitation. Sensitive to criticism, he reluctantly downsized.
I think I'm slowly changing because we've been so battered by it recently that we portray women as these huge, chested, you know, voluptuous women. And I guess the reason that I've always been cold to that, I'm like, Superman is not a weakling. Superman is this massive guy, and the people who are cast to be Superman are these bodybuilders, and the heroes are not these little men, but it's so weird how the focus does not stay on them, it's on the women.
With merchandising spin-offs of his comic book heroes, Rob became a $7 million man at age 27. Now the young boss of Image Comics takes special interest in the talent he hires.
We pay our young artists exceptionally well, and it's kind of the pride that I take in saying we're different, we treat artists better. I want to work with these guys for years and years and years, and I want them to be able to go home and say, we're treated well at this place.
Rob's commitment to young artists goes beyond mere talent spotting. It also includes making time for the unknowns and the wannabes. Among comic book fans who press him for autographs, he instinctively knows the difference between those seeking escape between the pages and those seeking fulfillment.
You, as an artist who wants to make a living out of this and wants to make a career and hopefully support a family, owe it to yourself to stand out amongst the crowd.
Before standing out as a superstar illustrator, Rob's biggest fan was high school sweetheart JoBeth Creel. She became his fiancée after he popped the question in the place he felt most comfortable, the center pages of his comic book. In June 1995, the actress and the comic book king tied the knot, then got to work renovating and redesigning their first home together. With time, money, and a whole lot of love, the deluxe villa built on one man's imagination soon became a showplace. Chateau Liefeld comes complete with a crow's nest studio where Rob keeps his pencils and his mind sharp. Just when he thought life couldn't get any better, Hollywood came a-calling. He and Steven Spielberg are already at work on a sci-fi adventure based on one of his comic characters. And that's just for openers. Rob is reportedly also working with TriStar Pictures and Tom Cruise to turn another of his creations into a big screen hero.
Certainly, if Tom Cruise stars in a movie that was based on my idea, I don't think it gets any bigger. To me, that's what I'm most proud of. I stuck to my dream, and everyone who told me that's not going to work out, and it's like, it's opened a lot of different doorways that are definitely exciting.
Rob Liefeld, the designing man who turned adolescent visions into some very grown-up figures.
Directly ahead, he serves the Fresh Prince dinner in Los Angeles.
Hi, heroes. I'm Stan Lee. I can't blame you. And I'm really glad you're here today because we have a great guest. And I don't want you to let his age fool you. The fact that he's been in the business for so many years, it's 3 years, I believe, and he's all of 23 years old. And I want you to know he is one of the top talents in the comic book business. He writes, he draws, He's a great guy. You'll love listening to him. And here he is, Rob Liefeld. Hiya, Rob. Glad to have you here.
How you doing, Stan?
Okay. And I want to get right into it. Okay. And I want to find out how a guy like you, who looks legit in every other respect, ever got into the comic book business. How did it happen?
How did I get into the comic book business?
And how old were you when it happened?
I was 19.
19.
I was 19, and I was always reading comics and got major enjoyment out of them, you know, as a kid, and decided pretty early on that that's what I wanted to do as a living. Went to some conventions, shows, and got to meet the other artists and the other professionals and saw how comic books were produced, and tried to learn as much as I could from that. I figured I had to finish high school first, or you know, my parents would have a conniption fit, so we had to get through that. And so once high school was finished, and I was just working some odd jobs, I said I'm going to break into comic books. So for about a year, I worked a couple jobs, delivered pizzas, worked some construction in the daytime. And all the while, every free moment, you know, away from friends or whatever, working on my comic books.
I mean, you were drawing in
all
your
drawing,
spare
yeah,
time?
yeah, drawing.
Had you studied art, or did you just pick it up on your own?
No, you know, the high school art classes, you know, draw an apple, draw a flower, I mean, and stuff, and that was good. I mean, I learned my fundamentals, but I was always drawing or coloring or you know, tracing. I mean, I think I started out tracing, you know, when I was a kid. You know, and then you kind of graduate to, hey, I think I can draw this. I don't have to look at it or trace over it anymore. So I was doing stuff like that.
Were you tracing comic book artwork?
Oh yeah,
all
yeah. Mainly comic book art. I mean, comic books. I just thought they were the coolest. You know, the big guys, the strong villains. You know, it was just exciting stuff.
I admire your taste and perception.
Oh yeah, and so naturally I wanted to grow up and draw that stuff. Now, Mom and Dad weren't real thrilled about this because they weren't really sure, you know, comic books, you know, what's that about? I mean, I used to get in trouble for reading comic books. My dad would find them and throw them away.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Before or after you read them?
Oh, good question. Well, sometimes I'd have to hide them because I didn't have an opportune moment to, you know, look them over. But I wasn't real good at hiding things. I'd hide them in the washroom or whatever, and I'd go to find it, and then they'd say, "You're looking for a comic book? It went with today's trash." And I'd be,
really? Wow.
I'd be, oh yeah, they thought that was bad news. They didn't want their kid tied up in comic books, but they don't complain anymore. They're big fans of comic books now. But anyway, out of high school, having all this, you know, built all this up from a young age, every spare moment I was trying to draw. Went to a local junior college, took some life drawing classes to see how the body was in motion and stuff. But studying the guys I liked, seeing what made me respond to their work on paper, and started mailing stuff off.
Excuse me one moment. Who were some of the guys you liked? I think that would be interesting.
Actually, John Byrne, Frank Miller, George Perez, and those were the guys who actually were currently doing comics. You know, as I was collecting them. Friends of mine would say, "Well, are you into Neil Adams? Or are you familiar with Jack Kirby's work?" And so then I'd go, you know, and get turned on to their work, and it was just, you know, I was just taking everything in as I could, you know.
You sort of became an amalgam of all that was best of all.
Oh, sure.
Them, huh?
I mean, I'd say, well, I like this. This guy's got a lot of detail, and this guy does cool figures, and this guy does great close-ups, and this guy's really moody, you know, and that guy draws really realistic, you know. And you're trying to find, well, what do I like about all these guys, and try and put it into some style that you could call your own. So anyway, I was sending off packages right and left to smaller companies. You know, not the big two, being Marvel Comics and DC Comics. I was kind of in awe of them, or you know, afraid of them. A friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, there's this big convention in San Francisco. I read about it in one of these trade magazines."
Comic book convention.
Comic book convention, and I'd been to a couple of those locally. But this one had tons of editors on the guest list, and I had already learned that, you know, that's how you get your job, from the editors. If they don't like your work, you're not going to get in. And so we decided, we had a free weekend, to hop in the car, go to my aunt and uncle's place in San Francisco. I lived in Anaheim, Orange County, so it was about anywhere from a 7 to 8 hour drive. Drove all Friday night, got to my aunt and uncle's, you know, kicked back. I was kind of nervous, you know. I was like, oh, tomorrow's it, you know. It was kind of like trial by fire. Go in there and, you know, see if they respond. So we got there bright and early, and I decided I'd go to hit all the small companies first. You know,
Let me interrupt once more for a second.
No problem.
What type of artwork were you bringing to show them?
I
think people would want to know.
All my own stuff. I mean, I created my own characters. And
did you do it as if it was a page of a comic?
Oh yeah, they were all comic sequential art. I didn't give them pinups. I didn't give them posters because I had already learned that that's not what they wanted.
So you made it look like a comic book page.
Oh, sure. I
or
drew
a
my
group
own
of
comic
them.
books. Yeah. I had about 10 pages of comic book art featuring my own characters, and because actually the reason I featured my own characters was because that I was scared that I wasn't going to draw the Hulk as good as this guy did, or I'd draw Spider-Man as cool as this guy did. So I said, if it's my characters, nobody's drawing them as good as I am right now because no one knows they exist. So we took them down to San Francisco and showed them to the small companies and kind of build the courage. And eventually, they were all pretty responsive, and everyone's pretty busy. The convention was pretty busy. And about midday, I went over to DC Comics, and I said, well, I'll try and hit them up. And Dick Giordano, who was one of the main guys at DC, I believe he still is, looked over my stuff, said he was interested, and responded with a please send more. I gave him a Xerox packet. I had Xeroxes all my work, handed him out right and left. And then we were kind of at Marvel at this huge display. And my friend's going, go to Marvel, go talk to Marvel. And I was like, I don't know if I want to talk to Marvel. I don't think they'd be interested. And he said, go talk to Marvel. So I walked over there, and a guy by the name of Mark Grunwald, an editor, looked over my work, and he looked up at me and he said, how would you like to work for Marvel Comics? I fell over, I was like, you're kidding me, right? And he said, no, I have something right here in the bag that I can give you. Some character sketches and like an 8-page story.
You mean right off the bat?
Right there,
you
on the spot.
And you hadn't wanted to go to Marvel?
Oh, I was terrified.
Why was that? Why more terrified of Marvel?
It's like they're the biggest game on the block.
It was like pulling teeth. I knew I'd get you to say that.
Oh, exactly, exactly. They were the big, the biggest catch. I mean, you figure, I didn't think I was quite ready. I didn't have the confidence, and
it was the biggest one that really recognized your stuff the best.
Yeah, I mean, I was just extremely fortunate. I mean, the ride home did not think of anything but, wow, I'm going to work in comics. I mean, I did not even think of the trip.
How you felt. Yeah.
So I came home and I was like, wow, I'm actually going to work in comics.
And you had an 8-page story to start with.
Yeah, they handed me an 8-page story and said, why don't you start drawing this? And he told me that if I didn't get in contact with him, to call him in a week.
Do you remember what the story was?
It was a story of the Black Panther. He was it was for an Avengers book that they did. And so it was a character called the Black Panther. Now, I never got to draw the story, because they gave it to somebody else as well, and then that person drew it and saw print. What I gathered was they gave a lot of different plots out to up-and-coming artists.
I didn't know that. I thought it was a definite assignment.
It was a definite assignment, but they eventually got me more work. I mean, it wasn't like it was a gag.
They did get you something else.
Oh, sure, yes. So then, I mean, from there on in, I was able to go home and say, well, cool, I can work these other jobs for just a little while longer, and then I'll be making my living from drawing comics, which is what I'd always, looked forward to doing.
And that's what you're doing now.
Yeah, constantly.
Son of a gun. Well, let me see. What I'd like to know is, in the beginning, what was the first strip that you did that was printed?
The first.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a strip called Hawk and Dove for DC Comics.
Yeah.
It's weird how yin-yang back. Marvel hired me on the spot at the convention and was interested and said they wanted me to do work, but at the time, you tell your parents or you tell your friends I'm working in comics, you better cough up some proof of that fact. And the first person to get you, something in the mail, because I called back about that plot they gave me, and they said, well, hold off on it. I mean, talk to us a little before you do it, Marvel. They wanted to walk me through it a little, and I did some character sketches like they had asked for this book that they were producing for Marvel. So I did send my first, work off, but it wasn't like a story to Marvel. It was some character designs that they had wanted, but DC sent me my first story. Like, here, get started on this, and I was just going to do the first thing that came to me. And so I was actually kind of bouncing between DC and Marvel for the time being. But the Hawk and Dove book was a 5-issue miniseries, so it was real. It was very finite. It was going to be over in 5 months. And while I was doing that, Marvel then called and inquired about me doing regular work for them, which I was more than excited, about doing.
Me too.
So
what was the first job
for
Marvel?
For Marvel,
yeah.
The first job was actually a Spider-Man story. It was what they call an annual. It's like a special thing they give out once a year, And so I did a Spider-Man job, and it's like weird. You're 3 pages into it, and you go, I'm drawing Spider-Man, It's kind of weird, It's like because he's become so recognizable and so part of comic book history or whatever. And so I did Spider-Man, and then they moved me into some X-Men books, did some X-Men stuff, and eventually there was a book that called The New Mutants that they wanted to change things on, and they moved me into that.
So.
Isn't it incredible how you, as a beginner, in a sense, started out doing 2 of the top books and 2 of the best-selling books in the world?
I was very. The thing I always tell people is I was very fortunate that you know the stuff fit that.
Maybe the people at Marvel also had the good sense enough to know what to give you.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Because you certainly did a great job. Now you're now doing an X Factor book, I believe.
X-Force.
X-Force.
Yeah.
X-Force. That's
Everyone
right.
confuses them.
Yeah,
Factor, Force.
How many X books do we have?
I think there's
know?
like 8, 10 now. I mean, everything they got. Yeah. They got. There's the team books, and then each member of the team has their own book. So yeah, people get all confused all the time. My own editor.
I used to know them all. I must admit, I get confused also.
Oh, when there used to be 1 X-Men book and 1 Spider-Man book, and there's 5 Spider-Mans and there's 5 X-Men. So it's confusing.
When we get a good thing, we don't let it go.
That's right. No.
But anyway, the getting started as a pro, then you didn't have too tough a time. I mean, the minute somebody really saw your work, they were able to recognize it was good, and you did get started.
Yeah.
And I think that's just terrific. It's an unusual story, but it's a great one. But you must have other interests too. Now, besides comics, I hear that you're big in basketball.
No, I'm not. I'm big at trying to play basketball. I'm a big fan, but I don't want to get on the court and make a fool of myself with anybody who.
Do you go for much exercise in sports?
Actually, you know, with being an artist as a living, when I first got into comics, I would just sit at my desk and draw and do the work. And you get easily distracted. If you didn't want to draw the page, I found that I'd go and sit and watch TV for a while, or I'd go and I'd eat a Snickers bar or 6. And eventually, I was like, wow, I'm not getting much healthier this way. So I think, yeah, you've got to get out and exercise. And I always try and make it a nice blend of a day. Get out and do something, that's exercise every day, because you're just
can't
sitting
sit
there
over that board all the
no,
time.
not all.
I used to be that way about writing. You just can't sit over a typewriter and then later a computer all day long. You have to find other things to do. So I decided to interview artists.
There you go. Break up your day.
And boy, you can tell you're an artist. You haven't let go of that pencil
since
I know,
you said that.
And I want to tell you, if you keep doodling, I want that page autographed before we go. Okay,
that's a deal.
That's a promise. Now, let me ask you something else. And I think this would be interesting. Oh, by the way, I just want to let the world out there know that before this is over, we're going to see Rob doing some drawing, but we're saving the best for the last.
Oh, okay. We're going to do that last.
So tell me, how do you feel about comic strips themselves? What do you think makes one comic book story better than another? What is it that makes your X-Men outsell Joe Blow's something else?
You know what, I think I've thought about this a lot sometimes. You go, why is this doing better than this particular book? Mm-hmm. I think it's the people who really, they take the time and the care and they put the effort into it. I think anything you do, once you put the effort into it, and especially something like this, producing 22 pages of artwork on a monthly basis is no walk in the park. You have to constantly, and to do it month after month after month, it's like you have to constantly recreate yourself, come up with something new, because if you don't, your readers are going to get bored, your fans are going to get bored, and they're going to move on to something else that has effort put into it, has created, if you become lazy with your product, it's going to result in the readers, a disinterest on their part.
One thing that a lot of people don't realize, today, comic book stories have become so complex with plots and subplots and subtle characterization that a complete comic book story is almost like a motion picture.
Yes.
And if you think about it, people like yourself are doing a minimum of 12 comic book stories a year. Well, that's like doing 12 motion pictures a year, which nobody can do.
Definitely.
And so the amount of creativity that's required is enormous. And I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you didn't. It's a great point, because a lot of people don't. Sometimes, I swear, I come in contact with this time. People meet you and they ask you what you do for a living, and you tell them you're a cartoonist, and then they again say, well, what do you do for a living? And I think people don't.
You mean you get paid just to draw pictures?
No, I think people open up their Sunday Funnies or go buy that comic off the rack or see them and think that some machine produces this, or some race of people called cartoonists, come up with this. It's like,
they're mutants.
You draw comics for a living. It's like they can't really grasp it. It's not something they can grasp, because it's not something they're familiar with. Doctors, plenty of doctors. Lawyers, you've met some in your lifetime, Cartoonists, they're like this weird breed of people think, and they can't, like I said, I've always felt that people think that some machine churns all this out. You know,
it's a funny thing about comic books. They've changed so in recent years. They've gotten more respect. I remember when I first started, and we're going back a few centuries ago, but I'd be at a cocktail party with my wife, and someone would come over and say, hello, what do you do for a living? And I knew the reaction I would get, so I would say, well, I'm a writer, and I would try to walk away, but, you know, they'd grab me and, what do you write?
Exactly.
And I still tried to fudge it. I'd say, stories for children. Grab me again. What kind of stories? Where are they published? Oh, in magazines. What kind of magazine? And finally, I had to say, comic books. And suddenly the hand would come off my shoulder,
you got it.
and they'd walk away.
Exactly, because it's like they didn't understand or they don't take it seriously.
But now I go to a party, and everybody pushes past Steven Spielberg.
Oh, definitely. Where's Stan Lee?
That's right. And hey, there's a guy who works in comics,
That's
and
right.
they're all around.
That's
It's
right.
a whole different thing.
That's
you know?
right.
So anyway, I want to get back to what you said. You were saying that you got to work hard and you have to take it seriously, but you and I know it's got to be more than that, because there are a lot of artists and writers who work hard, who take it seriously, who give it their best shot, but they still don't do things that are big winners. So I'm waiting for you to say, and you know what I'm waiting for you to say.
You know what? I don't want to sound, you know, it's like,
You gotta
I don't
say
want to
it.
sound like a comics philosopher or whatever, but, you know, it's I think it boils down to this, oh boy, it's personal vision. I think what you know, you look at the different artists that I liked a lot, there were certain signature things they did all the time. You know, they knew, it was like there was a formula to what they were doing. They had a personal formula, a personal vision, and you saw that on the page. They felt very strongly about what you're doing. That's where I think the effort and the interest gets into it. I think there's people here who they would be just as happy to draw, you know, just the same old story of Spider-Man month in and month out and grab the paycheck, and they're getting to be able to draw. They're drawing, they're having fun drawing, but they don't want to do much more than, you know, kind of draw for a living. They're getting to draw for a living. I think the guys that stand out are the guys that they just, it's so into them, it's bursting out of their head. You know, I mean, there's always new ideas. When I talk to my editors at Marvel or anyone I'm working with creatively, they always say, you know, slow down, because I'll get ahead of myself and they'll say, wait, we have to take care of these 6 points before you bring up 6 more points, because you just want to, you know, when you have good ideas, you want to cram them all at once. You want to go, oh man, I want to show the kid this month too. You know,
One thing we forgot to mention, you also do your own plots, don't you?
Yeah, I do all the plots.
So you not only draw the strip, but you come up with the idea for the story.
Essentially, it's writing the story. I don't feel that I've ever been like a wordsmith. I mean, I have a tendency to stutter and get, you know,
I know you're doing pretty good now.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate the idea that you're showing me up, but we'll talk about that later.
But anyway, so I figured, why not let somebody who's better with that handle that? And Marvel.
So someone
Marvel
else
said,
puts
fine.
in the dialogue and the
Yeah.
captions.
Yeah.
You come up with the basic plot, you draw it, and then somebody puts in the words you read on the page.
And you know what? I have no desire. Maybe one day I'll get real, you know, a whole bunch of courage up and put words in their mouth. But I think that would just probably ruin the picture as a whole. Right now, what I'm good at is coming up with plots and creating stories and situations. But if I had to be the guy who put the words in their mouth to talk and speak, it'd be gibberish.
Now, let me just say something else. If anybody out there is wondering, why are we listening to this man's philosophy? What does he know that's more than anyone else? There's one little fact I forgot to mention, which I think is of more than passing interest. Your newest comic book,
X-Force.
How many copies would you say it looks like it's going to sell?
We're, again, very fortunate. It did very well. I think it sold 3.7 copies, and they sold out, and they had
3.7 what?
Million. Oh, yeah, million. Sorry.
I think that's an
3.7 million.
important key word, don't you?
3.7 million copies, and then there was another 1.5 added on that. It came out above 5 million copies.
More than 5 million copies.
Yeah, and you know what? It's weird. You just kind of hear that, and it didn't really faze me until a few weeks later. I read about this band who their record company was really happy about them selling 1 million copies because they got, you know, I think platinum or something like that, gold, platinum, silver, bronze. And then you kind of go, wow, that's a lot of comics to sell.
You're going uranium.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
But
I
think it's even more than a lot of comic books. I think that is more than any comic book have ever sold since time began.
For now.
All right.
For now.
Oh, well, we'll break your record next week, probably.
And that's their
it'll
goal.
probably be you who breaks it.
No.
But I mean, It's a phenomenal, fantastic thing to sell that many million comic books.
It was a surprise. It was...
And that's why I'm listening with rapt attention, and I want to
come
learn
on.
what I can
You've sold,
about what makes
if we tallied up everything you've sold, it'd be in the billions. So.
Yeah, but it was over a period of years and a lot of issues.
Yeah, well.
It isn't fair to torture the viewers any longer. I mean, sitting here with you this way, it's like I'm with the world's greatest, or one of the world's greatest pianists, and I'm not letting him play the piano. Or I'm with one of the world's great magicians and not letting him do a trick. I mean, here's a guy whose artwork is totally fantastic and phenomenal, and we haven't let you draw yet, and we're going to rectify that right now. How about coming over to that drawing board over there and showing everybody what it is we're talking about?
Okay, let's do it.
Terrific.
All right.
I have a feeling that our viewers would probably love to see you create a brand new character in front of their eyes.
Okay,
Think
exclusively.
you're up to it?
Exclusively on this show. Yeah, yeah.
Terrific.
As a matter of fact, the other day, I'm just going to start right now.
How do you start with a new character? What do you think of first? The name?
Yeah, the name. I think the name is really important. Kids don't get excited over, Petunia Man or Milkman. That they want the Hulk or Cable or this new name I got for this guy. His name is Die Hard.
Die Hard.
And it sounds
sensational.
deadly. Sounds deadly. I think the kids would like him. So first of all, we give
Wait
him
till
that
Bruce
standard.
Willis gets after you.
Oh, yeah. He'll be a big fan of this character. Okay.
So you know you're going to call him Die Hard. Now, once you've got the name, what do you do?
I then try and give a visual that goes along with that name. Something like I already said, Die Hard seems to be like a deadly type name. You'd think of something, Die Hard.
Doesn't sound like a cream puff at all.
No, exactly. So anyway, we're sitting here and we're drawing him. And I've got about the basics down here, and I'll go to ink right now.
I noticed that all these heroic characters, they kind of stand like this, bow-legged with their arms like that, right?
Oh, sure. That's showing how tough they are.
That's right.
How wide they can swing. And
I wonder
how
if I
far
would look
apart.
tough if I stood like that. I don't know.
Oh, gotta flex your muscles, Stan.
But the drawings sure look that way.
Okay, so...
Now, do you, in your mind now, know what he's going to look like? Are you just drawing this according to a picture you've already got in your mind?
Yeah, exactly. Something like I said, he'll be a tough guy. And first of all, his face. His face,
Gotta have a face.
Yeah, gotta have a face. And this face, we have this big jet black stripe down the middle here. And it's mysterious. You can't see his face.
That's pretty mysterious.
And maybe we'll never show his face. So the kids will always wonder, who is this guy? And so there, he's got his, and black. Black kind of says something. Maybe we'll make him all black and red or something like that.
That's what I like about your drawings. They all make a statement in some way.
Okay, and then we're going to give him the chest right here.
So there's a big black vertical line going down the face between the eyes, covering the nose and where the mouth would be,
So
right?
far. And right now I'm just going to go out and underline and outline what I've kind of got down as his anatomy, his figure.
And you put it in very lightly in pencil first, just to give yourself a guide.
Yeah, just a guideline.
I noticed one thing
most of the
about your drawings. You don't finish a line very often. You draw in a staccato way. You draw a little bit, then another little bit, then another little bit. You leave spaces between the lines. That's very interesting.
Stan, that's one of my trade secrets.
Really?
Break up the lines. Yeah,
well, it's only you and me talking. You can talk about it.
Okay. Let's see. It's safe with us, I hope. Okay, so here, I'm going through, got his anatomy pretty much down. Got him some strength to his figure. Again.
Yeah, I'd say he looks pretty strong.
Okay, we're almost done here. We've got the legs done, give him some multiple muscles in his legs. Sometimes, the fans go, where do they get all that muscle? They drink their milk every morning. They're strong guys.
You'd be okay if you didn't draw so slowly. I think you'd really be.
I got to draw faster. That's my new goal for the new.
You draw a minimum of 20 some odd pages a month, right?
Yeah,
minimum.
That's no walk in the park. I mean, it takes some effort.
It's really incredible. You draw it in pencil, then you draw it in ink.
Yeah.
That's after you've plotted the story.
Yeah, after I've written the story, and then I lightly sketch it out, and then we go to ink. Okay, so we've got his figure down.
Okay.
Okay, so let's give him some gear.
Now this is the exciting part, putting the costume on, right?
Yep. And we'll give him some gear. And because I always liked gear when I was a kid.
Yeah, who doesn't? You always seem to throw something around the shoulders, which
Yeah,
is pretty dramatic.
It's a fashion statement.
Yeah.
So we're giving him fashion statement here. Make it some high-tech mumbo-jumbo, give him some more lines, looks like more technology, more hardware.
My wife would say she loves the way you accessorize these guys.
Yeah, they're definite fashion plates. Okay, so now I'm going through giving a little more muscle. Okay, we've got some stuff on his shoulders. You know, we got to give him some kind of cut for his costume. Okay, we'll start with his shoulders here, and we'll go over here, and then we'll cut down. Okay, we'll do something like that. Then we'll cut in here, and let's see. We'll do this. I'll blacken all this in, so it'll be clearer to see in just a second. And
it'll have a totally different look by the time you blacken it in.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have a feeling, looking at him, that he's more physical than cerebral. Is that's just a wild guess?
Yeah, I
Would you
think
say
so. Yeah, I think that'd be safe to say. So, okay, see, we got him the lines under the eyes, kind of makes him look mad. We'll give him some little ankle. Here, let's give him a guy named Die Hard. Should be able to fly around, so we can fly down on the people and swat them. So there, he's got some jet
This
stuff
is what
here.
enables him to fly. These are little jets, are they?
Yeah.
I should have known that.
Okay, so we're giving him his neck thing.
What would his personality be, would you say?
Wouldn't talk much. Kind of guy that gets the job done. Doesn't
Clint
sit around.
Eastwoody?
Very much
Kind of
so.
like Stan
Yeah.
Lee? And
Oh, definitely.
Real rugged and
Definitely.
strong,
very,
silent.
Very
I
much
see
in that mold of Stan
Sure, I
Lee,
can
Arnold
see
Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
Bronson.
Arnie, Stan, and Charlie.
And Die Hard.
And Die Hard.
Okay, here, we're just going to go through real quick.
Does he have a special superpower? Should have been my first
He's
question.
got it all. He can do anything.
Really?
He can fly.
That's not a bad talent.
He's strong. Definitely. Comes in handy.
He flies, he's strong.
He flies. He can, let's say he's got super strength, can lift things, throw them at people, throw cars, throw
I'm almost
buildings.
afraid to ask the next question. I hope he's a good guy.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, thank
definitely,
goodness.
Definitely on the side of good. Because there's too many bad guys out there. And the good guys need to be more powerful.
I would say
therefore.
so. We need a lot of diehards around.
So we're going through here, we're giving the highlights, giving the little black shines, giving more detail in the work. Okay.
It seems you start with a thin pencil, then you get a thicker little black marker, then you get a very heavy marker. What'll the next thing you use be? A paintbrush?
Get some colored markers if we had some.
Really?
We go throw some color in
sorry,
there.
we don't.
Oh yeah. So there we go. And okay. Now I'm gonna go in. Actually, okay, he's got his chest. We've got all this stuff covered. Let's see. Oh, got to blacken his foot in. And there. Now we got a new character. Named Die Hard. Okay.
You letter also. Is there no end to your talents?
I can talk and
I
letter.
used to letter like that. I love that kind of lettering.
Did you? I think
There's
yeah,
probably a
pretty
name for it, and I don't know what it is, but I love that style.
Amateur.
Yeah, maybe that's why
There
I
you
love
go.
it.
Die Hard. Okay, why don't we put him through, we'll put him through some paces here. But let's see, does he any more gear? Put some more shine.
Yeah, he doesn't have as much gear as you usually put on, does he?
Yeah, if he's going to
I mean,
fly
just
around.
a couple
you know
of
what,
shoulder things is all I see.
A couple shoulder things, some wrist things over here. We gave him
You
some
didn't
wrist things.
accentuate that. Now
right
they're
here.
getting a little more definite.
Okay, so there we got that. And these are fists, kids. This is what he's going to punch you with.
Right. And he's not wearing any type of rifles or guns?
No,
or
not this guy. Well, he's
gadgets?
strictly physical. Now, if I was going to create like a more commando type guy, like say, we'll just create a more commando type guy. Go over here. Okay, we'll have this guy. Put him in another strong stance while I'm carrying a big gun.
Do you have a name for him?
Let's
Joe
call
Commando?
him. Let's call him Cross.
How do you spell it?
CROSS.
All right, Cross.
Okay. Put his eyes in here.
I assume he's always angry.
He's not a happy guy.
No.
I mean,
They're
I
never
should
happy,
probably.
are they? Have you
no,
noticed
they're all
that?
pretty,
They're
pretty
never
unhappy.
happy.
Well, what they do isn't easy, and it's not, it's not
I
a
think
nice
since
job.
Howard the Duck, we haven't had too many happy characters, have we?
That's true. That's true. So anyway, we'll make this tough guy here and just show you how I would approach this differently. Okay, we just going to dab his eyes.
What power would you say Cross has?
Well, since Cross, we're going to give him some accessories and more guns and weapons.
More gear than
yeah.
our friend
We're just going
Die
to say
Hard.
yeah. Die Hard. Die Hard's got more like superpowers. Cross here, give him a little spit curl here.
Oh, I love that spit curl. And
Okay.
he relies on his gadgets, right? His equipment.
Yes. So anyway, we're just going to give this face here.
Yeah,
so
that's
the
a
kids,
pretty handsome face you're drawing
So the
there.
kids know who they're looking at here.
He looks very noble. Huh?
Very noble, but
Yeah.
gets the job done and
I
will
like
do
that
anything
face.
to get the job done. What do you think? You think they'll go for that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, this is how I'd approach him now. Giant neck. Giant neck, okay?
Right.
Now, if we're going to give him gear.
Now, it's the gear that really turns
Yeah,
me on. I
because
wanna
you
see
criticized
that gear.
Die Hard because he didn't have
Yeah,
enough gear.
Die Hard didn't make it for me. Not enough
Okay,
gear.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, here, why don't we
All
put
right.
a shoulder pad over here, And over here, we'll got to give him a huge chest again. This guy, he'll be even bigger than Die Hard.
You know, every time I think of your artwork, the first thought that comes to mind is huge shoulder pads.
Okay.
I'm surprised your T-shirt doesn't have a lot of padding in it.
Yeah, I'm just not as big as these guys. Wouldn't look good on me.
I don't know how big they'd be without all the equipment.
Okay.
No, I guess he's pretty big.
So, okay, now with this, we're gonna
Wish you wouldn't make it look so easy.
We're gonna accessorize this guy to the teeth.
Okay.
We're gonna give him some pockets over here, because he can carry his ammo and his bubble gum.
Have you ever drawn him before, or are you making him up now?
This is the world premiere.
Really?
Yes.
So I'm in at the beginning of a new superhero
Definitely.
called Cross.
Cross.
And obviously, if our lawyers are tuning in, you and I are creating this together, so we
Of
both
course.
share the copyright. I mean, you couldn't have done it.
Have
if
your
not for
lawyer
this.
call mine.
Okay, my people will
But
call your
I got a
people.
great tagline for him already.
What's
Don't.
that?
He's the guy you don't want to cross.
Very good. Oh, that's good.
There you
I like
go.
that. I like
We're on
that.
a roll, Stan.
Yes,
we're
sir.
gonna sell a bazillion commies.
I have a feeling
comics.
with your artwork, we'd sell 1 billion of anything.
Nah, Cross is gonna be the big seller. Everyone's gonna have a Cross comic book because he's cool and he's accessorized. Okay, now we're putting these things on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Do you
Actually,
ever
let's
say
see.
to yourself, what do these things on the shoulders do?
Oh,
or
sure.
Do you just have
He would
things on
grab
the
these
shoulders?
off. He would grab those off and throw them, and they'd like explode.
Like
again.
boomerangs? Oh,
Sure.
like explosives, okay.
Explosives, yeah.
Great.
To get him out in a pinch.
There you go with the little lines that have little spaces in them again.
I'm
I
telling
like
you,
that.
the more you
I
point
like
that out, the more you're going to draw attention to it, and then I'm going to have mass competition. And
No, nobody else would know how to do it like you.
Let's hope not. Okay, so then give him some more belts,
Mm-hmm.
some more gear, give him a big tank top for his rippling muscles. There's his chest. Here, okay, and his belt is full of more stuff than you would imagine.
Right.
Just all sorts of gear. Here's the gun.
And
gun
every one of
pocket.
those compartments holds something different.
Oh, definitely. And here's his belt buckle or 6. And there's
Now-
some more explosives. There's another pocket. Okay.
I'm going to
Going
give you
over
2
here.
minutes to finish the accessories. Let's see how you go.
Okay, let's see. How fast can we accessorize
What about
this
that
guy?
wristband there? What does that
Okay,
do?
you know what? You know what we're going to do? We're going to give him spikes.
Oh, he's got to have spikes.
Okay, spikes.
So if he misses you with his fist, he gets you with his forearm.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Spike later, right?
That's
So-
why I want to rush you. There's one subject we forgot to cover.
Okay, well, we're
We'll
going
get
to
back to
it.
that table and get
Okay,
to
but
it.
we got to accessorize him. How am I doing on time?
I think you've got about another minute to go.
Okay, how about we give him a holster right here?
Now, trying to get you nervous, but be nervous.
Oh, no,
There's the
I'm good
holster.
under pressure. I'm good under pressure.
I see that.
Okay, there we go. Okay, we're going to get this. Give him a glove on this hand. We didn't glove that hand. So we'll give him a glove on this hand.
Does the glove do anything, or it's just a glove?
Nah, it's just so his hands don't get dirty.
I bet if you had time to think of it, the glove would do
Oh,
something.
sure we would. But here's the big bazooka gun.
And that's behind him. He's carrying that on his shoulder, and it's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
come down.
It's
back
coming
there.
over here.
Right.
Boom. We got this here. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go to the thick pin so we can hurry this up and I can make your incredible deadline that you put me under.
Now,
And-
there's just one more subject that I think I want to talk about, but this has been absolutely great.
So
Now,
there.
does he have special kind of boots?
Yeah, we'll put pads on his boots.
Any spikes on him?
On these one over here. On the side. That's good. On the side. We'll give him spikes on the
Now,
side.
you see, that's my contribution, right?
Okay, you got
okay,
it.
so it's definitely a collaboration.
Have your lawyer call me, Stan. Okay.
I think you did a good job on my character, too.
Hey, thanks. Actually, why don't we?
Might as
why
well
don't
put spikes all over.
Heck yeah. No one will touch
Certainly
him.
on
no
the
one
shoulder.
No one will get near him.
I
you know
hope he
what?
doesn't tilt his head down like that. He's
Oh,
dead.
me too. Cut his ear off. Okay.
Another weapon back there?
So now, see, you like him? You like him? Is he accessorized
I
enough?
think he's great. I really
Okay.
do. And
First-
his name is Cross.
Cross.
Now, I hope everybody will remember they saw our creation first, right here, right?
Yeah, right here. Right here.
Oh,
on,
that's terrific.
on your video show. Okay. So he's hairy. Oh, throw a little more
A
hair
little
on
more
the
chest hair. You always put that in, don't you?
And there we go. Cross is history.
That is great.
So
I
we
hope
got
the
cross.
camera is catching this
We'll
beautifully.
put. Oh, how
because
about this? We'll put cross.
in our style of lettering.
Oh, yes. The infamous style.
But the only thing when you do that kind of lettering, it must always overlap. You see, like that S should be like that.
Oh,
you never
actually-
let them touch each other. You
That's
see,
right.
Like
That's,
there.
yeah, I made a mistake there.
So you didn't bat 100, but it's okay. You're,
Okay,
you're all
we'll
right
put a
in my
big
book.
cross. There, that's his logo. Thanks a lot,
Terrific.
Stan.
All right, let's get back, and we're going to talk about the one subject I've been saving till the end, which
Okay.
fascinates me.
Okay. All right, let's do
Terrific. What I wanted to say, and I've been waiting all during our little talk, I understand that this is not your first bout in showbiz. I understand
that you are an old-timer at this sort of thing.
Not quite.
That you have done a world-famous commercial, which almost everybody has seen, and I think I would love it if you would just tell us about it.
Okay, I'm going to assume you're talking about the 501 commercial.
Well, what else would it be?
It's the only commercial
Okay.
I've done. Yeah, they have this Levi's 501 ad campaign, and the gist of the whole campaign is to get people who do unique jobs for a living, and then they plug the jeans through that. And you know, you wear your 501s while you bungee cord jump, or while you milk the cow, or in this case, I was fortunate enough while I draw comic books. There was a phone number that came on the screen and you know, said, if you do something interesting in your 501s, why don't you call? So I was just, as a fluke, I wrote the number down on my board as I was drawing, and I called, and they asked to leave a 45-second message, and I told them that, you know, my name was Rob Liefeld. I told them how old I was, where I lived, what I did for a living. I worked for Marvel Comics, and if they wanted to find out more, call me back. A couple weeks went by, and I really didn't hear anything back from them. And then one evening, about 9 o'clock, it was later in the evening, it surprised me, they gave me a call, and said they were the Levi's company, and that they had got my call, and they were interested in doing the commercial. So to make a long story short, eventually everything got hammered out, and the cool thing was, right before it started, they said, well, you know, Spike Lee directs these. And I'm a big Spike Lee fan.
How can you not be?
Oh yeah, and really enjoy all his movies, and have always thought that they had like a comic book element to them in the style of which he directs.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited. That was a real highlight. So while doing the commercial, they asked me several questions that had to do with comics. I mean, actually about 100 questions. They sit there and you film, and they filmed a lot of information, which they then cut down to a 30-second ad spot. But it was amazing. He really knew so much about comics, and this will make you happy, a real big Marvel Comics fan specifically, and just knew all about, asked me about Prince Namor, the Submariner, does he still have wings on his feet, and, and the Invisible Girl, and so it was just really nice. And the thing that I really got excited about was that it was a chance to kind of get comics on TV every day.
I got
you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it's turned out to be. It was pretty funny. When I saw the commercial, it was pretty unexpected, and they had shot me in a blue room, and said that they would put my characters in the background with me, and I was pretty excited. Kept trying to visualize it, but one night, just sitting with a bunch of friends, we were watching a TV show, and the commercial came on, and I didn't expect it, and it was a real treat to see it, and it's just neat.
What did the commercial actually show, for anybody who hasn't seen it?
Okay, it starts off with me drawing in my office, the studio, and it asks about how long I'd been drawing comics. It asked about how my parents felt about it.
A disembodied voice asks you these things?
Yeah, this is Spike Lee.
Yeah.
Spike Lee is asking.
But you don't see him on camera.
You see his body at one point, and then in the middle of the commercial, he asked me to draw him. He says, "Who is this?" And I say, "It's Spike Man." He had wanted to see himself.
That's great.
as a superhero. So we gave him spikes, as you can already see that I'm very fond of, and I gave him a long billowing cape, and I had his hat on, and it was pretty funny, you know. Made him into a superhero. Real big fan of comics, and so it was just nice. And I think the cool thing is that it kind of legitimizes to kids their hobby. You know, that comics.
Yeah.
Wow, it's on MTV. It's on. So I think it's cool. I hope more things like that, you know, happen. It would be nice to see comics continue to break into the mainstream, you know, through whatever it is, movies, commercials, television, you know.
Rob, I got to tell you, I think that you are a great spokesman for the comic industry, a great evangelist for comicdom.
This is Out There, Youngblood. He's the man behind the nation's best-selling comic book, folks. Just out on the stands today. It's called Youngblood, and here's its creator, Rob Liefeld. Rob! I'm getting so old now, man. I interview newsmakers, and they look like the Waltons' third son. I mean, well, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Oh, wow. Well, you know, when I was young, we used to read, did you ever read Daredevil, X-Men, stuff like that?
Yeah, I work for Marvel.
Yeah, I noticed one of your characters in there. I get a very Norrin Rad Silver Surfer vibe off of this one guy. Yeah.
Oh, so you read comics?
Yeah, I loved the comics when I was young.
Okay.
But this one is so different. I'm seeing cats get out of bed with women. That never happened.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Except with when I was younger, of course, with Penis Man. But Well, the women didn't like because he was faster than a speeding bullet. But here is the... Tell me a little bit about Youngblood. You got real life with it, right?
Yeah, it's Youngblood is a team of government superheroes. They, as an answer to like nuclear weapons, they start genetically engineering these super people, and as a result, they become celebrities. You know, because it all started off with I thought if there was a guy like Superman, he'd be like the world's biggest celebrity, and he'd be doing like Coca-Cola commercials and Nike endorsements, and so I figured, oh, let's try this, and so that's basically what we're doing with Youngblood.
Yeah, so they're in real-life situations. I also see in here you call for the suicidal death of a Saddam Hussein type figure or something.
Yeah, it was just, I came up with that like last year during the Desert Storm thing.
What's his name?
I think we call him Hassan
Yeah,
Hussein.
Hassan Hussein.
Yeah, I didn't want to
kills
get sued
himself.
by his lawyers or anything.
Yeah,
So,
the artwork's killer on it, too. Do you do the artwork and the
yeah,
story?
I do the whole thing, yeah.
And you
yeah.
just started your own company, right?
Yeah, myself and 6 other cartoonists, we all decided to start our own little company. We didn't know how it would do it. Called the Image Comics.
And you just got sick of doing it for somebody else? Or?
I think we just all got the same itch at the same time. We just wanted to kind of go off and do something else. So yeah, so we just formed this company, and this is the first book from it.
Yeah.
So
now, what will the rules be? Is when you work for somebody else, Marvel, who I guess is state of the art, right?
Oh sure, yeah, that's the top.
What was the hang up there, though? What didn't you dig about the way they...
No, the thing was, working for Marvel was great. It's just that I created a lot of characters for Marvel over the course of a couple years, and I just couldn't see myself staying and doing that over and over and over again. And I decided, well, I'm going to try and do it on my own. And I think that's what we all thought. So we just gave it a chance. Now we can own this stuff and see the creative process like all the way through. You know,
Right.
if they want to make a toy or if they want to make, they've got to like talk to us, you know,
Right.
instead of us kind of being cut off. So.
And changing your characters and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
exactly,
that, too, right?
exactly.
The
You can't
artist-
like give him blue hair or green hair.
Yeah.
And
Now,
so-
Superman 1, doesn't it sell for like $50K now?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive, but that was like years ago. That's an old comic.
Yeah. And so maybe one day, Youngblood.
Maybe, I don't know.
First one.
I don't know.
50. Who did you like when you were young? Who were your favorites?
Oh yeah, all the stuff you mentioned.
Yeah,
Fantastic
Matt
Four.
Murdock. Remember his law partner?
I can't believe this. Yeah.
Foggy Nelson.
Yeah, the little guy. It surprises me.
Give me a little trip. Give me something.
No,
Give me X-Men.
X-Men? What do you mean? Like Wolverine or
No,
Cyclops?
Cyclops.
There's Cyclops and Iceman and the Beast, and there's the Professor X, bald guy in the.
And who did Ben Grimm always do battle with?
The Hulk?
No, the Yancey Street Irregulars.
Oh, okay.
Remember?
Jeez,
It's
no.
clobbering time. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy here, this guy, he was kind of inspired by the thing. His name's Bedrock.
Oh, yeah, I can see a
Yeah, I
real
was gonna have
Ben
him,
Grimm
like, kick
vibe
people
there.
and-
You remember Ben Grimm? Went into space, got hit with a cathode ray, turned into a peach pit.
Yeah.
For that poor bastard, huh? Oh, yeah, he was getting laid a lot. His name was The Thing That's Never Used. Okay, The Thing joke. He's a cartoon guy. All right, what else have we got coming out? What's your next character? You got another one in the plans?
Yeah, I got a book called Brigade coming out into the summer.
Nick Fury knockoff?
No,
Oh.
it's another group of like they're the celebrities in this comic, and this is more like a rebel team. They don't want to be the celebrities and stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
You know, it was the coolest when Nick Fury left the Howling Commandos and formed S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
It was like the man from Uncle.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it when I was young. I had no life. Still don't.
Genius.
All right. Hey, look at this. This is caught on, I think. Can we get a shot?
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
The entire audience.
Oh, that's
Yeah, reading the first copy of Youngblood.
Good deal.
All right. Well, this is the creator, Rob Liefeld. Rob, thanks for coming
thanks
on,
a lot
buddy.
for having me.
All right,
Okay.
we'll be right back with actor Sean Patrick Flannery right after this.
Hi, heroes. I'm Stan Lee, and welcome to the Rob and Todd Show. You know, most of the young people in this country read comics, and those who are young in heart, of course. Well, I've got a treat for all of them today. Two of the top talents in the comic book business, Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld, are here to tell everything they know about how to draw comics. It ought to take a couple of minutes, I guess. Hi, you guys.
Hey, Stan.
Todd,
How you doing, Stan?
Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld.
Hey, you
Good
know
thing
what?
I practiced your names a minute
Hey, it is
before
a
you
good
came, right?
You know what? We're here to give you a relief. You know.
I can use a lot of that. Now that I've done the introduction, the rest of it is up to you. I'm going to take a little nap because I've been in the
Take a
studio
break.
most of the day. You guys go and elucidate and entertain and educate the public, and I'll be here when you come back.
Okay.
To
Okay. So
applaud.
we'll maybe have a few surprises when we come back.
Okay, I'd love it.
Okay.
All right. Go get him, guys.
See you, Stan.
Break a leg.
Okay, ready?
So
You
what's
take
up first?
You take the seat. I'm gonna be lazy on this one.
Okay.
Okay. Now the first vid that I did, I was kind of lazy on it. I didn't really show the kids anything. You showed them more in yours, and hopefully the
just
other
a
guys
little,
have
not
showed
too
them.
much.
So what we're gonna do is we should probably do something that's a little more practical. Let's get down to the basics probably and show
Tools.
them. I find that in the mail that a lot of kids ask the same questions, like what kind of inks do you use? How do you use brush? Do you use a pen? What size of paper? I mean, a lot of kids don't even know what kind of paper that they use. One of the big mistakes that I know that a lot of kids seem to end up doing is when they start inking, they end up using rapidographs or ballpoint pens or even felt tip pens.
Markers.
That's not really the way to start the thing. What you got to do is, unfortunately, we don't have that many brushes here with us because right now we don't use the brushes. We use Crowquill pens right here. Guys like Terry Austin, Joe Rubenstein a bit, Scott Williams, Jim Lee. They use what we call Hunt's mapping points. There's anything from like a number 97 tip to number 108. The numbers depend on the flexibility of each one of those pen tips, and depending on whether you press hard or you press light or whether you need a fat line or a thin line will depend basically on what tip it is. What I always tell kids to do is go out to the art stores, basically grab one of each. If you go to the Hunt's mapping point place, they've got all of them in little containers. Grab a couple of each one, take them home and play with them, and see which one is the best for you. Also, go get a couple $15, $20 brushes. Don't go get a cheap $2 brush because it's just going to split. The hairs are going to be all over the place. It's not going to do you any good. Go get some good sable tip brushes and spend the money on it and see whether you want to do brush work or you want to do pen work. To each his own. We're not going to force you one way or the other. So
You want to use some form of India ink, Higgins, Black Magic, just anything. It says India ink, waterproof. What do you use? You use a 102?
I use a 102, Hunt's Mapping Point 102. Now the best thing about working like as a pro is if you guys get into Marvel DC, all you viewers out there, you get them for free. So you don't even got to pay for the suckers. You just phone them up, tell them you need some supplies, and they send them to you. So there's one incentive to get in there for free, guys. You don't have to pay for supplies anymore. Okay, now the other thing that they seem to have, I don't think most people realize that we reduce the pages. Now an average comic book page is about this size. I mean, I don't know what the size is like, about 5 by 7 or something like
it's a
that.
little bigger than that.
But our black and whites are actually done 10 by 15. So we get the stuff pre-boarded from Marvel or DC, or whether we get it from a company or something like that. But our pages are actually 10 by 15, which is about the size of Rob's ego. Although Bob Harris says it's usually about the size of a double-page spread. But this is about the size you want to be drawn because we're going to end up reducing it. It also gives you enough room that you don't have to do those tiny panels so tiny. People think that those tiny panels are like this big.
Yeah, you got to work the size.
Okay, now what we're going to do here, Rob, is that we're going to try and create, let's say maybe from a blank page, we're going to go all the way in and give them what our thinking is from a blank page. Depending on what the story is, we're going to show them a little bit of coloring. We're going to show them a little bit of how we ink. We've already shown them some of the tools. What do you rough out with? Like
I usually use a notepad, and then when I rough out, I use markers. It's the only time I use markers, is when I'm doing roughs or layouts. Like I usually work about this size, laying out a page, and once I figure out.
So you do thumbnail sketches first.
Yeah, I always do thumbnails, which are just a form of sketching out your story. So you get all you work out all the kinks, on this size as opposed to on your 11 by 17 paper, and then you transfer it there, or you can just look at it and take it over there. You can use a camera, you can trace it, whatever.
See, now people also have overhead projectors that they blow up the stuff. Now some guys will draw little small things this size, thumbnail drawings like Rob does, and they throw the little guys in here, and then they'll blow them up to full size, 10 by 15. The reason that's a good idea sometimes is because then you don't lose a lot of I find that the more steps you do, the more your characters become stiff. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
And I see guys that they do little 2-inch drawings, and they do 5-inch drawings, and then they transfer it on, and they do it in pencil, then they do it by ink, and by the time they actually get it done, what they actually had in the pencil little tiny stage was actually more dynamic and more exciting to look at. So I think that the less you actually repeat
see-
yourself, the more that the energy is still on the page.
Okay, but see that is one method, but actually I just do that method you just said. So for some guys, working smaller is better than working bigger.
Your
'Cause I can't-
deadlines suck too, don't they?
No way, they're better than yours. And drawing this large for me is harder because the bigger you get, the more your stuff expands. The bigger your eyes are, the bigger the space between your eyes and your nose. I work better small because that's just everything's confined. I can see what I'm doing.
But then you blow them up from
and
there,
I can do a close up. Well, sure, but I don't. I go in pretty tight. You know, I'll go in there, and I'll give them like a nose. You know, where placement of things is. Placement of the eyes, placement of the mouth if he's screaming or something. And then I go to a copy machine. You know, you can go to your local Xerox store or copy shop and get something copied there because a projector can run you, some pretty hefty cash there, can run pretty expensive. That's one method. You can lay it out straight on the page. Plenty of guys go straight to the page and boom, they're in and out of a page and onto a next one. I mean, this is a funky method. This is just the one I use. I go small, I blow it up, I got a light table, or you can put it up to your window if you can't afford a light table and just transfer it that way. But don't, like Todd said, don't go real tight in there. Leave something so you can have some room to ink. I mean, for instance, this drawing is pretty loosely sketched out. When I go in and ink this, much the same as you do on your work here, you know, you're going in and tightening up. The kids can see you've roughed in, you know, your stomach muscles and stuff. But I know you're going to go in there and about 1,000 lines in there.
Now we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. That right now a lot of guys are starting to pencil and ink themselves.
Okay.
So some of the young guys now that are maybe watching the video that are trying to aspire. The one thing that I don't think happens is they don't hire you for 2 jobs at once.
No, that's
so
true.
I see.
Specialized.
We're going to go through penciling, inking, coloring, all these things. And if you want to try all of them, I highly recommend it. But the one thing I also tell kids is, on the way to doing all those things, break them up. When you do your pencils, make a copy of that. Then when you ink it, make a copy of that. Then when you do the coloring, make a copy of that. Because if you hand in a penciled, inked, and colored page, the average editor is going to say, I'm assuming that you want to try out for all 3 jobs. Because if you just want to try out as a penciler, you're not showing me your pencils. And so not too many kids are actually professionally talented in 3 fields at once.
That's true.
Most of us usually get in there at one, we're good enough to break in, and then we kind of have to claw our way and get another job or something like that.
So if you can't draw real well, you can come in as an inker and then develop as a penciler. So, I mean, I know what you're saying, so go ahead. Don't stop.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm serious. Just you're right. You should specialize. Todd's right. You go in there and you show them a pencil and ink work. He's going to think you're trying out for inks.
Because I see too many kids that end up being, it's the old jack of all trades, master of none. I say whatever one you like the most, I don't even care if it's the one that you're the best at, but hopefully it is. The one that you're the best at and the one that you like the most, keep doing that one over and over and over, because what's going to end up happening is if you give them the different steps, you give them the pencils, you give them the inks, they can either say, hey, kid's a good penciler, kid sucks on the inks, we're going to have to get somebody else to ink them. Or we go, the kid can't draw worth heck, but he's a pretty good inker, maybe we can put him on an ink job or something like that. Yeah. You're opening yourself up to more than one job. So what you got to do out there as we go through the steps, again, don't cram all that onto one page. Break them up, and when you send off your samples, then do it. The other thing, too, and they're going to hate us for this one here, they tell you to send it to the submissions artist, to the submission editor. Wrong. He's a flunky, I'm telling you. Usually the guy running there is the flunky. The guys that can give you the job is the editor. The editors are the ones that hire you. So what I tell the kids, too, you do 3 pages, and when you do 3 pages, you make 50 copies of it, and when you make 50 copies of it, you send it to every single editor at Marvel, DC, Eclipse, Image Comics, and whatever other good comic company you can think of on the week. But send it to everybody, because you only need one editor to actually give you that first job before...
And then you're cranking. You're rolling.
Inking, cranking.
There you go.
Okay, and the other biggest question that I get is, did you pay for that haircut?
Unfortunately, I did, yeah.
That's brutal, buddy.
Sorry about that.
That's brutal.
It's an old joke.
Okay, now...
Okay, should we go to
okay,
layouts?
Well, give them, okay, we'll go to the layouts, and then what we'll do is tighten up a little bit of the pencil to show them like how much tightness that we should go on some of the penciling.
Okay. Well, when it comes to layout, a lot of people struggle with storytelling. There's a lot of great storytellers out there: Jack Kirby, Frank Miller, Gil Kane. You know, when I approach a page, this is how I was shown. You want to use the inverted S, or basically a Z, to get through your page. You you want to set up your page so that your eye is falling. This is going to make the difference between when that fan closes your book, whether he liked it a little more than the other one. The kid's not going to close the book and say, you're normally not going to close it and go, wow, I like that book better because Todd McFarlane utilized the inverted S. But it's a design element that's really effective. Oh, the Z.
Or for the Canadians, the Z.
There you go. It's just, you want to fall through the page. And for instance, set this up here. It's all a lot of storytelling, and this doesn't mean you can't draw gorgeous babes and muscular guys and evil villains. You can do that big on each page. Let me erase this real quick.
You want the big one?
Like right here. That's okay. Like, okay, here, I'm going to go for a face, all right? Juicy close-up, pull your reader in. Don't do tiny stuff. You know, that's been done a million times. Don't do tiny stuff. Todd used to beat this into me.
The one thing that I tell kids is I call it the 2-inch rule, and I won't tell you whose work taught me the 2-inch rule, but it's either 2-inch or 1-inch rule. Is I see too many comic books that I can hold my fingers apart, this 1.5 inch, whatever, and I can almost go through almost 80 to 90% of the panel, and I can fit almost every single guy into those 2 inches there. That doesn't bring my eye in there.
Right.
My attitude is the first time you see a guy, either he's a double page spread, he's bigger in life, it's a close-up of his face or something like that, and every time you introduce somebody into it, you should hit the reader over the head. Again, some guys write their stuff, some guys don't. For the most part, the average guy, and you out there aren't going to become a writer, penciler, or inker, I guarantee it. So you're going to be following the lead of a writer out there. So when you're following the lead of a writer, then what you're going to be doing is, he's got control over that. The only thing you've got control over is the visuals. So when you've got control over the visuals, you make those things bang out. Put the pressure on the writer, guys. I'm telling you right now, the writers, this isn't a how to write comic book. This is a how to put the pressure on the writers. You draw what you want to draw. You draw it exciting, and I guarantee it, you give them 10 panels, they write in 10 panels. You give them 2 panels, they can write that same story in 2 panels, guys. They just put a little bit more word balloons here and there. So don't feel the pressure so much of the writer. Sometimes new beginners, I find, get in there, and what another problem is they do 10 panels a page. It's death. Try to combine. If the scene is a guy drives around a corner on a mountain, he goes through the girder or you know, over the cliff, the car explodes, and he jumps out of the car to save himself. The average beginner is going to do that in 6 or 7 panels. I can do that in 1 panel. I'll just forget that I don't have to show him going through the girders. I can just show the action lines going through the girders. I can show the car exploding in mid-flight, and I can show the guy jumping out of the way. And I'll show that he's coming over a canyon road, and I got all of it in 1 panel. And the best thing about doing like 1 panel instead of 8 panels is, instead of that thing being 10 panels that are about this size, like this, I've gotten 1 good panel about this big, and then I can cut into some other action. Or I can do 2 or 3 small ones to build up to the suspense that his tires screech, and then he ends up going over the mountain street or something like that.
Okay, well here, I can show you a little clearly now what I was talking about moving your eye through a page. Because really, you know what, you have to give the proper information, but move the eye clearly through a page. A lot of times you get, you know, if you get things all jumbled up on the page, it stops the reader in the middle of the story, and when you got an action story going, you want to rush right through, you know, you want that action to be felt on the page. And for instance here, we started with the close-up, then here we go to this angled shot behind this guy's shoulder, and there's his eyes, and here's this guy hunched down. Now he's hunched down. You don't want his head up here, because he doesn't look dramatic. His head's dropped down here, his eyes and his shoulders are down here, and then he's leaping at him. Now, I'm going to draw right over this. Our eye went like this. So boom, boom, boom. Think of it as an arrows. You want to lead your eye here, then there, then there. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do it, but most of the time you want to do this. Here, we're going to start off with an establishing shot. A lot of editors are going to give that establishing shot. And sometimes, you know what, give that one city scene so they can put in that little word balloon there.
And these right here are leaning buildings, because Superman came by.
Forced perspective.
Or Bedrock just walked by.
There you
it's
go.
One of the Youngbloods guys.
You got it. New image characters. Okay, here we got this going here, and then I'll be done with this. So you got your panel borders. Okay, then we got a down shot of these people.
Let me interrupt. As you can see here, Rob's stuff isn't all that tight. And that's what we're stressing here on the layout part of it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry whether the eyeballs are straight or stuff. What you want to get here is a lot of the dynamics and storytelling. And the actual pretty drawing, that comes at a different stage right now, when you're doing the tight penciling or you're doing the inking or whatever else.
Okay, I'm going to just finish this up right here. Okay, give the big lips. Okay, so we've got this. So our eyes going in like this, and we go over here, because we got a down shot of them walking through the city. We'll put a sidewalk, put a trash can over here so you know they're in the city. Down shots, the camera's up here now, but you've gone in here on your forced perspective. You've come down here. Now your eye's going to flow right through all this stuff, because we close in on them. Maybe give an up shot, so your camera's down here, shooting them up. So you've got that. You're going head, head. So these two head, the placement of them is leading to your last panel, which you give a big head shot, nice big shot. You can go in there and do your pretty face. You can do whatever you want. Boom. You're in the page. You're out of the page. You're flipping, and the action's coming with it. But yeah, don't go in tight when you're trying to figure out your storytelling. Just use those little stick figures, that jump out of you, or kick, or punch, or whatever.
Okay, now one of the other things, too, that you can do on your pages that a lot of us are starting to do, guys like Jim Lee and Wills Portaccio and Rob and myself and Eric Larson, is we're starting to get a little more designier with the pages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And unfortunately, this is a tough game for you guys to have to play here, is that when you hand in your samples, if you hand it to the editors, a lot of them are kind of raised from the old school. They got to see ABCD, storytelling, everything's cool. And unfortunately, we're going to show you a couple of tricks to designing and stuff, but you might have to curb some of those things until you're actually in. Because if you go out and you try to be real designy right off the bat, then sometimes they pick out those designy elements as a flaw in your storytelling. So you don't want to give them too many flaws. What I usually tell them is, when you go in there to get a job, they don't want to hire you. They've got a gun, and the least amount of bullets that they've got, the better chance you got of surviving and coming out of there. So the first time, they're going to say, you can't draw, you got no storytelling, you got no dynamics, you don't know what you're doing. They've got 8 bullets riddled in you, you're a dead man. The next time you come back, hopefully you've corrected one of those. They only shoot you 4 times, not too bad. You don't have to be perfect, because none of us are perfect when we get the job, but if we're only mortally wounded somewhat, and we can just say it was a flesh wound, you usually get a job, you're in there, you can I'm going to tell you what happened to me personally. I did these, as you can see, I do a lot of designy stuff. When I did Infinity, I did this wacko weird stuff, okay? I handed those samples in when I was trying to break in.
Yep.
Nothing. The first time I did what I call the standard 1, 2, 3, 4 panels, I got my first job. That was a year and a half of handing out design stuff. But as soon as I got the job, Steve Engelhardt gave me the first job. I said, Steve, I don't want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. He goes, beauty, you don't have to. And I was able to do it. But I was already in. And then luckily, Roy Thomas also let me do that too. And I was able to do it once I was in. Trying to do it from before you're in kind of rubs them somewhat the wrong way. Now, the reason that we like designs is because I'm a hockey fan. I don't know if you guys know that, but I love hockey. Can't play it because I was born in California. But now look at this shirt here. Now this could have been a dull shirt. There's a lot of sports shirts out there. But here's a shirt here that's got a couple of little 1990s type stuff on it. Kind of looks cool. The back right here, it's got a design here, a couple different textures even on. Actually, if you could even feel this, you would see that
it's all bubbly.
There's all bubbly and there's plastic on it and stuff like that. But this is a wraparound cover. Now, only reason I'm showing this is that this could have been, I could show you 10 other San Jose Sharks memorabilia or T-shirts, and 9 of them put you to sleep. This one,
this could have been shrunk down.
This is cool. This is a cool shirt, and it's designy. And the reason it's designy is 90, it's hip.
Yep.
And so what I'm saying is the new comic books that are selling, whether the editors want to believe it or not, are new, hip, and they're designy.
More of a design slant.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can take blasé, nothing drawing, and I mean I did it enough times when I was doing Spider-Man or when I was doing Infinity, but one of the problems that they say is they don't want anatomy sticking out of a panel. I think that's wrong.
Yeah, me
you know
too.
what I mean? That's just a rule that they repeat. Now, again, you might have to keep the anatomy in when you're doing your first samples of getting the job, guys.
Yeah, be conservative until you get your first job.
Yeah.
And once you get your first job,
there's two sets of rules.
Start doing it a little at a time, little at a time.
So listen to rule A to get in, and then listen to rule B when you're after you're in, and you can take some of this. Now, what I'm saying is, what you can do is, you can take a guy, I don't care what he's doing. As a matter of fact, we'll just make him standing there. Now, see, I'm not going to draw as pretty as some of the stuff that was on Jim and Wils's video, if you guys bought those, I hope. But we got the guy standing here. Here he is. He's bow-legged. Yeah, I know. You guys saw this in my first video, and it disappoints you. So, but he's sitting here. He's looking pretty cool. And Da-da.
Give him some detail lines.
Give him some what?
Give him some detail lines to appease him.
Some
Just a
detail
couple.
line.
There you go.
Beauty.
There you go. Good deal.
Beauty.
There you go, kids.
Now he's now he's sitting here. I've got a big panel here. Now I can run this in 10 different ways. If I was going to give him a cape, probably if I wanted to be real funky, I'd give him the cape. Let's say if his cape is up here, I'd give him the cape up in here, and I'd run it up here, and then what I'd do is I'd cut it back behind his head here. I'd now use this as part of the border, and if I use that as part of the border, then I'd maybe do kind of a trailing thing where the cape went over the border here.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I'd cut the border in here, come through the old crotch shot here, come over here, and now since this is going to be the big one, I could actually even fit one panel in here, two panels here, make these a little smaller, a little moodier, and then build up to the suspense of dun dun dun, we have Rutabaga Man, or there's another cool character called the Spawn. So he's here, you get to see him for the first time. Again, you can't do that on every page, I don't think, but if you do it on a minimal amount. The other thing is, too, you want to put a little bit of, again, see the legs that are spread apart?
Yeah.
You want to do a little bit of dynamics or something like that, or, I mean, and those are kind of things, I see too many faces where the guy's sitting there like this, you know, when you could have him, you know, eyes like this, and his mouth wide open.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've got a little 6-month-old girl, and I guarantee you, I can tell when she's going number 1 or number 2. It's her face dynamics. You know, number 1 is an easy one. Number 2, ugh.
Or you can cut this face cool. You can, you know, or yeah, you know, it's so standard. Just don't do that stuff. But you know that. But be creative. Take different cuts.
Beauty. Now I've been pencil and inking for, gosh, I don't know how many, 3-4 years now or something like that. So I don't do any tight penciling right now. So why don't you give us like maybe just like an arm or something like that, and show them about the amount of rendering that you want to do on this thing.
Okay, and then you want to come in and
for somebody to be able to ink it, because one of the other things I find too is guys, when they pencil, they over render. You want to keep your stuff simple, black and white, so that an inker can come in there and ink this stuff fairly easy.
All right. Okay, I'm just going
And
to
if you do, the other thing too, I've seen some beautiful black pencil stuff that's beautiful gray. I mean, it's a photograph, but a guy's got to come in there with black ink and's got to make that either black or he's got to make it white.
You know what? Don't do this in your pencils. An inker can't read that.
Yeah, or when they come in there and it gets a little bit darker.
Yeah, just ignore that altogether, because an inker, that's really, he's going to either have to turn that into separated lines to get that graduation or overlap that like that. Don't do the gray stuff. This isn't like illustration. We got to work in terms of black and white. Okay. Just going to draw a little face here.
Now, when I rough out my stuff, again, it doesn't matter, but I mean, I'm inking a lot of my stuff. I use a non-repro blue pencil. Now, people ask me why you use the blue pencil. The reason I use the blue pencil is because, as an inker, being probably one of the lazier guys in the business in some respects, if you use a non-repro blue, you don't ever have to erase the pages.
Yep.
Now, maybe you got an assistant that erases your pages or something like that. I don't know, but it's a pain in the rear, and something that can take like 20 minutes to half an hour to erase each page. And if you got 22 pages and you got a deadline, I mean, it could take you a day to erase those pages. So I just do it in non-repro blue, and I never have to erase my pages when I'm done inking them.
All right, I've almost got it. I'm just going to put his chest in here. A little bust shot here of Shaft from Youngblood. And
a Youngblood. I heard that's doing swimmingly.
Oh yeah, doing real well. So, okay, I'm gonna do this. Give the arm down in here. You know, just usually shape everything out. You know, when you're little, you go, I don't need to shape those things out. I can go straight. You know, just like my favorite artist. Use the shapes. We all started that way too. You become more comfortable with them, and in time, you know, you'll be able to fidget with them, and they'll come out looking like that arm that Todd drew or Jim drew or what have you. Okay, all right, Todd, I'm almost done. I'm giving him his little wristbands here, and he's got his fist, and he's shaking it up at you, and here's this, and here's the ribs, and here's
now,
this.
if you were going to become a penciler, then you'd want those things to be obviously a little bit tighter.
Tight.
Like here
you can't give this to an inker. It won't look anything like this.
Oh, you give it to me.
I'll give it to you.
Okay, if you're going to do this chest area right here, though, then I would say you give him the shadow in here.
Go for it.
Show them that there's going to be. Show them that there's going to be. Okay, well, we'll just
Go
tighten it up.
Well,
I'll just tighten a little bit up on a pencil, though, because some of the guys that are just trying to break in as a penciler want to see a little bit of like exactly how tight you're going to want this. You're going to want this here tight enough so that some of the stuff is pretty much delineate it so that the inker isn't going to really have much problem. Chances of them teaming you up with the best inker in the business as a rookie is highly improbable, guys. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that there's no questions to be asked on your artwork. Somebody's been inking for a while, and I think some other inkers that have been around for a while, most guys actually, I think, like to ink on from a little bit looser stuff, and the reason is because they can throw a little bit of their flair on there. But
yeah, you want to go as tight as possible. The more leeway you give the inker, the more leeway he's going to take. I think, basically, that's what
okay, now
Todd's saying.
now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to ink, let's say, this forearm right here.
Go
we can leave the
do
rest
it.
of it up in here. Now, one of the things you want to do is, a thick line usually will tell you that there's a little bit of weight, and a lot of thickness on the line comes in curves. Dick Giordano usually puts his heaviest thickness when he gets into a curve. Like, so here's a muscle in here, so he'll get real thick in that muscle right there, and when he's coming up on underneath the side, he also gets real thick on the bottom sides of the arms, and the reason is once you get the thickness on the bottom side of the arm, you get a nice light coming up on top of it right in here. So if I come in here and I build this up with nice black, I mean, it depends on how much mood the scene calls for or whatever else too, and exactly how tight Rob put it in there or something like that.
Okay, well, also, you know what, when you're talking about light source, when you do something and you're going to consider a light source, if your light's coming over here, all your shadows are going to be cast on this side of the body. If it's over here, they're going to be cast on this side. If it's coming from below, they're all going to be cast against the edges of the body. You know, consider your light source. Just, you know, if you don't understand, put a flashlight up against your wrist or put a flashlight against your hand and then see which areas become darker. That's where your light's coming from. And that's basically what Todd's doing right here.
Okay, now we gotta. See, now some of the areas too. Now we didn't bring a brush. We should have just. But your big areas,
knock
them out with the brush. If you got a big area like a cloak that's that big, what we used to do is put an X in there, and then we just go in there and black them out. Now, if I wanted this to be real heavily, I would have used a brush. I didn't bring a brush. I apologize. Don't use a felt tip pen because it fades. But I'd come in here like this, and then I'd also continue that into his wristband in here. And the reason I continued in there because the light source would be the same or something like that.
You want to make me sometime?
No.
Too busy with your own work?
No,
Behind on your deadline.
Why do you think your cable first appearance looks so good? Okay.
Because I drew it real well?
Yep. The other thing that you want to do too is on some of these things too is like if a guy leaves it too wide open, you might want to spot a black behind him or something like that. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to tell you where Reggie Jackson lives or anything, but what you want to do is you're going to put a shadow in here. Let's say if this is where his little tit is over here, that you might want to put. That's okay. We can use that word.
You know we can.
Yeah, Stan's not here anymore. Or is he sleeping?
He's still sleeping.
He's
taking a few
He's
Z's.
snoozing. Okay, so we can put a black up in here to tell you that this arm here is now cutting in front of this body piece right in here. So now, even though, let's say you have his belt up in here or whatever you've got him drawn up in here, I don't know what you're drawing, but we'll finish this up here.
Rib cage, buddy.
I know it's his rib cage, but he's got to have a belt in here. This is his, like he's up and adamant.
Okay.
Okay, here's his belt up in here or something like that. I don't use pencils hardly anymore. But his belt would be in here. I would make that black, and we'd use the brush that looks like a felt tip marker tonight. But we put that up in here, and we put a little bit of a shadow up in here. Did it. Keep the feathering to a little bit of a minimum, because otherwise I find what ends up happening is most guys overwork this stuff.
Yeah.
Now that's kind of hypocritical coming from somebody like me who throws in 1,000 lines, but I overkill my stuff too. You don't want to sit in there and throw in 1,000,000 lines like this, because it just gets all washed out. And then plus a lot of guys just do it for the sake of doing it too. I don't think they really know like why they're doing it. They just they never know when to stop the page. Keep it open and a good colorist to come in there and save you. You know, sometimes I look at it, sometimes I just keep doing it because I just want to see what it looks like in black and white without the color.
You kind of keep adding lines and
so now the other thing too, like if he was in this panel here, I might say, okay, if he's behind here, here's a wall. This might be a little bit of him. Here's the wall here, and this would be a shadow back in here.
Which pops him out then.
So now,
That one?
yeah. So now he's coming around the corner. Let's say it was a nighttime scene or whatever. But he's coming out here, and this guy's black. I mean, you know, sometimes they do those ones where the leg is coming out of the shadows, whatever. I mean, there's got to be somewhat of a rhyme or reason. Some guys do some great shadowing on the face and stuff like that. I don't know how to do that, so I stay away from my weaknesses.
Yeah, me too.
The other thing, too, if you're going to do a story, I see a lot of stories, don't show, when you show your stuff to editors, don't give them 20 pages. You give them 20 pages, and that's death. Take 20 pages, pull your 3 best pages out there, and pretend that the rest of them are perfect. The more pages you give the guys, the more they're going to say, that you could have 18 perfect ones and 2 bad ones, and they're going to go, look at these 2 bad ones. Too bad, we can't hire you. Like I said, they don't want to hire you. You got to go in there with that attitude. So take your 3 best, make it look like, don't let them know the other 17 sucked, and just go, oh yeah, the rest of them look. As a matter of fact, I even say, don't even say nothing, because I see too many kids drop their artwork in front of the editor and go, this isn't my best stuff, but, and the first question is, well, show me your best stuff.
And unfortunately, listen to what they have to say. They're the ones who can hire you or fire you. So if they have something to tell you, come back the next time. They want you to do a bunch of little shots. You don't like doing little shots, do little shots, get that job, do it well. Once you're in the door, you can begin experimenting. You know, Todd and I, well, actually, Todd came out of the gate experimenting. It takes some of us a little more time. Editor builds up some trust in you, then you can go and run with it. You want to teach them a little about anatomy?
Anatomy?
Yeah, come on, you're the king.
I don't know the anatomy. You know anatomy?
I'm not exactly an expert on this stuff. You know, I'm known to fake it a lot.
You know what?
We should call in some help.
I heard there's some help in the building.
Is Jim and Will still around, you think?
I think so. Let's get him in there. And I love that flashy orange jersey of his.
Oh yeah, these
Come
guys
on
are
in
great.
here.
Hey, what's up?
Jimmy Lang.
Big Jim.
And Marley.
How you doing?
Let's see how they going, bud.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, now I don't know if you heard any of
piece of amateur stuff.
I don't know if you heard any of what we were saying, but we should get into some real drawing at this point. We were just going over a lot of the basics.
There we go. Get it all set up for
the
you.
anatomy. Why don't you guys give us something on like what you're thinking of in terms of like where the muscle structure is going, how and why, how it fits together. I notice a lot of guys when they put arms together, doesn't look like they're actually connected. You know what I mean? They just kind of look like they took parts and just stuck them together. So see if you can give them something here.
I think everyone uses a different way, but what I find most successful for me that has resulted in the figures looking tight and not put together from different angles is to rough something out like Rob was doing, and try to. I think of like the chest as a barrel shape, and the arms as cylinders, and the head as a square cylinder, and the most important shapes to me are the.
Try it.
Well, I'm about to here.
Okay.
All right. Okay. The chest. Okay.
Right.
The chest shape is like this. Okay, this is nothing new. This is George Bridgman's Guide to Life Drawing.
Let me ask you a question. Do you draw the chest first, because then it's easier to attach the head afterwards?
Right. I'll start with the chest and then the pelvis. The two most important, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I got the pelvis.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because then you can connect these two like
right.
a string.
Just put 2 lines right there, and you got your abdomen, and everything else comes out of here.
I'm learning.
Right.
Or Gil Kane used to do that. That he would take this and turn it one way, and then take this and turn it the other way, and he used a twine of rope in between, and then he just figured out how to.
Rather than learn every individual muscle and where it starts and where it ends up, I try to think more in terms of the overall shape of each muscle mass group, and they look more like football shapes to me. So just connect them up like that. Okay. Connect that.
We could use like a live model.
And if this is the center of mass of the chest, and this is the center of mass of the pelvis, the further apart they are, the more dynamic your figure is going to get. You know, Jack Kirby. I'm not telling you guys anything new.
Sure.
His chest and pelvis are so far apart. That's where he got all his energy and action coming in. So in this side we have a guy punching or something like that. We got the chest here, the pelvis here. I'm going to do a side shot from the pelvis here. And if you look at where these lines are, it's further apart. I can even put it all the way over here, right? The further you put them apart, the more energy you're going to get. You put this leg back. Everything kind of works contralaterally or something like that. So if I throw this arm out, this leg's going to go back. You're never going to have a guy running with this leg up and this arm out. You can, but you're going to lose some of the energy that you got. So if this leg goes back, boom, this arm. For every action, there's a reaction here. and you know.
Oh, that's great.
Right.
Yeah, that looks like he's hitting the guy.
Right.
He's
And
knocking
then-
him silly. Oh yeah, the arm
Right.
behind there.
Can I
Bam.
strike this?
You know, we're gonna.
I already did.
Cool, cool.
All right.
Where's the copy machine?
That's right. Take this. You take it to your blow.
Oh, that's great. No, you know, I don't use. I always start with the head, and I
Right.
do all these ziggy.
And then-
That's why your anatomy sucks.
That's right. Sorry.
All right, watching. You got the
Doing the new-
thigh here, and then all the interlocking parts, like the elbows and the knees, they're like little round softballs. You know, and this is something that you'll find in most art books, but the kids, they don't have the patience or whatever to do it. But if you want to be serious about your
Mhm.
work, you got to take the time
Yeah.
and treat each shape, and learn the shapes. Here's the ankle. Here's a little ball there.
Okay, now the one thing too that I tell people too is like on the chest here, the chest line here runs into this line always, and that's an easy way to
Right.
like connect those two lines. So even if his hand is raised up, if you start here, then you know that
Right.
here's his bicep and
Right.
here's his shoulder or something like that. It's an easy way to, as long as this is always kind of connected here, this line, the chest from the bottom of the breast, or whatever you want to call it, runs into the bicep line here, and then that makes it easier to attach that right there.
Well, every muscle, I remember Will telling me a long time ago when I was first breaking in, every muscle has a point of origin. So it comes out of here and it ends up here.
Yeah.
And that's why they kind of have this sort of elongated football
Sure,
shape.
sure.
And as long as you know where all the muscles start and end, you know, that's really all you need to know. You can learn the names and stuff, but that won't help you draw any better.
So let's.
All right, I'm gonna have Wills go in there,
All right,
and
cool.
he's gonna really flesh that out.
Finish this up.
'Cause he knows what he's doing.
Go Wills.
Give it to him. Now let me just say another thing too. Is that Wilson and Jim are probably two of the better guys right now for anatomy and the superhero comic books. You don't
Just
have
a lot of PR.
No, I mean that's true, but you don't. Their stuff is pretty, and right now a lot of the people find that real attractive. But if you go back in years, you'll find that Jack Kirby's anatomy was not perfect. As a matter of fact, far from it. His knees were squiggles. But because he was consistent with everything that he did, it worked over and over. And the one thing that you find is anybody that's got any kind of style, even though it's not perfect, Walt Simonson's got a funky style too, his stuff is consistent. So as long as you find a way to do it and it's somewhat believable. Now, you know, I mean, some people, you know, right now, like I said, they seem to like the Wilson Jim more than, let's say, a style like Mike Magnolia or something that's kind of a little blocky or something like that. But, I mean, who's to say in 5 years? I mean,
It won't go back to that.
Yeah, the kids-
and the strength is in your gesture.
Right.
So
Right.
so
I
as
mean-
long as your gesture's there, actually, you know, you can. I flunked out on anatomy early on, but I was able to I think pull a lot of stuff off because the
But
gestures.
you do the
were
big
there.
jerk panels.
There you go. There you go. Okay, go.
Well, actually,
Wills,
I
go.
found out that, like, I really admire Barry Windsor Smith, but early on in Conan, he
Oh,
did
yeah.
some wonky, wacky muscles.
Yeah.
But
There's
he
hope
took
for
those
us.
muscles. He took those muscles, though. No, but he took those muscles and he made everything round, everything solid. And as long as you make it solid, then it's believable.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if you just do lines going, I mean, like what Jim was saying about here, every line goes somewhere. If he had this line going out over here and then this line going down to here, and this line going over here and this line cutting in the air, then you have lines going nowhere, and then everything becomes flat.
Yeah.
If you can make it round, as wacky as it may look or seem to an anatomy professor or anything, if you can make it solid, it's believable.
Oh yeah, no, and
that's
your
the
stuff
whole
is real
thing.
tight. It's always
In the
got
mortal
all those-
world, are the words of Stanley draw. Well,
Draw.
Finish this up. Show us, you know,
Okay.
go in and put that detail in. Those kids.
Yeah, give us a good image.
Plug.
See,
Go,
I
go.
got the technical part here. See, basically, what we do is
Let's draw.
You study
Yeah,
like
yeah. Good Lord.
One of these
We
guys-
don't get paid
so
for
that's
the
why I
work.
never let him on the
What's
telephone. That's why I never let him on the telephone when we phone the studio, because you never get to any
We always
record.
ask for Jim. 'cause
That's the other thing you got to master. You got to be able to talk and draw at the same time.
It's tough. Gotta get that phone
What's
right there.
What's your name?
He
He stopped.
It's Rub. It's Rub.
There you go. There you go. No way I can talk and draw at the same time.
No, but basically, you want to take the muscles.
The kids see what's going on there. All right,
Ah,
beauty.
yeah,
No, this is great.
But you basically take what muscles are there, and like I said in my piece, if you ever saw it, I love taking all the muscles and making them mean something. You know, it's kind of like a puzzle to me. You take the muscles that are there, and you put them all together. Like, here's an elbow. It's got to go in right there, and all these striations or whatever you want to call it.
Think about it as like rope or
Right.
a weave or something. The muscles kind of intertwine with
Look
one
at that
another
muscle.
in complex patterns.
Yeah, and you want everything to, I mean, like, for instance, see that little touch right there?
Draw.
That's the edge of this. See? This is a whole muscle right there. You want things to go
If we can
somewhere.
clone you,
Guys,
boom!
hey,
One guy can give advice and the other guy
what?
can draw.
We forgot the biggest rule for anything, whether it's drawing, penciling, we forgot it. Wally Wood's famous rule, if in doubt, black it out.
Black it out.
There it is. Now, this is what I do. I don't have near the talent of doing anatomy that Wiltz has here. So once I get down to the leg, I try to put the puzzle together, and the puzzle ain't working. Beauty! We put a little smoke screen in there.
You got it.
We put a
Go ahead,
tree
finish it up.
stump over
Oh,
here.
no, go ahead.
We put a tree over his
Do
ankle.
the fade.
Oh, yeah, okay, okay.
You ever
You do
notice
the
why
fade,
most,
right.
when Tarzan's standing, he stands in thick grass? The reason he stands in thick grass is because people hate drawing his feet. Not too many people are good at drawing ankles and little toelies.
Just pick up here.
Oh,
in the
well,
little
Jim.
stone.
Jim's not talking much. He can't talk and draw either.
Yeah, Jim.
We got
go,
him.
go.
man.
Get that bubble
Man.
gum out. See if you can chew.
No way, he talks and draws. He masters.
Oh, what am I doing? Thanks, man. It's amazing.
Are you not repeating what you did in your other video, are you?
Like
you gotta give
no,
something
this is a
new.
little better. This is a little better than.
I know, you'd be
I'm
hosting
getting-
it.
I'm getting the first
This
class
video
stuff.
costs
Man,
15
imagine
bucks.
if we all got together and like formed a company or did books together. Holy
Let's
moly!
call it image.
Image, yeah. We
There you go.
got a good image so far. This is a good image.
Great little depth. Boom. Put a shadow.
Uh-oh,
there.
shadow, black it out.
Oh, there it is, black.
Just do the fades.
Spotting a black.
Right.
Spike
Okay.
Lee.
Where's your pen? here?
Attribute this
Let me
one
try
to
something here.
Mike McNewell.
Let me try something here. Oh,
Okay.
Mikey, king of the fade.
Right.
Wait, I'm gonna try and come in here and give that little pretty line. You see, Todd hates this, but I always splotch my ink first. Keep going, keep going.
Okay, okay.
You should have brought some ink with you, bud. You would give me a bad time there.
Oh man, I'm trying to do that little pretty Scott line, the Scott Williams wiggle. Where's Scott? You said a kid, right? Couldn't make it. Oh yeah, well.
There
Okay.
you go. Okay, now hold on a sec. Now we've
Boom.
gone to one extreme. Now nobody's talking.
Oh, get out of here.
Okay,
no,
now,
I did the squiggle.
Wolf,
Oh, I was working.
You're not drawing. You can talk now, bud.
yeah. Talk away.
There you go. Okay, you want to go in the render screen?
Even hair. You can make the hair move around, too.
Oh, look at that. God, Jim Lee.
Jim Lee. God Lee or Jim Lee?
Are you ready to stand?
Don't wake him
We
up.
cover that one over
Don't
here.
wake him up.
Okay, I'm
Don't
sorry.
wake him up.
Uh-oh, I'm getting that little line there. Can I ink you guys' books?
Okay,
Oh,
beauty.
wow, check it
Now,
out.
again,
Oh, yeah.
guys,
Oh. He's naked. All right, put some
What are we,
pants on
Sam
the guy.
Keith?
There you
Put some pants on him.
go. There you go.
Oh, this looks hot. Okay, I'm gonna go in here. I'm
let's call him something. No, no.
Wait, what should we call him? This guy looks great.
Put a little hair. Give him a little.
I'm going in here and wiggling. I'm
Alright.
sitting in. Cool lines. What other kind of lines do you do? Oh, you do all that crosshatch and
Call him
stuff.
the AM man. 'Cause we did this in the morning.
No way, call him
Yeah, we
Mr.
did.
Image. Boom, boom. Okay, I'm gonna
The
do
thing
some
with
Todd
anatomy,
lines.
I think, is to think of the muscle groups and then to put a heavy shadow along one side. And that it's a way, you know, a lot of kids will go in there, striate every muscle, and give you every single line, and it looks really kind of grotesque. If you can go in there and just give me one side, it suggests the rest of the stuff. It's all there. You don't have to draw every muscle. If you put a shadow on one side, the muscle shows up.
And basically,
through
I
that
mean,
negative.
if we're really honest with everybody, even though a lot of this isn't quite the detail that you'd like to see, we're just trying to give you some bits and pieces. But time's running out here. We should get on our way. We
Right.
stole all these ideas from Stanley anyway, so we should go check to see what he thought about it, guys. So sign it there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, boom!
Ooh,
Hey,
fast.
Looks like a DC character.
He's hitting cyan.
That's my new character.
This is great, you guys.
Thanks for
guys.
coming. Thanks for coming, Jim.
What's up?
Hey, let's go. Let's go see.